And we are live. Welcome to the NBA Deeper Dive. It is Friday, January 26th. I am Josh Engleman. I am joined by Eric Lindquist, and he had very good things happen to him the last time he was joined by me. We are brought to you by Sleeper. We've got a 7-game slate ahead of us. Should be a fun one. Some weird injury wrinkles lurking in the distance as well. Hit the like button, subscribe to the channel, hit the notification bell so you know when everything goes live. Follow us both on Twitter. Eric, how is your day? Because I can only assume it's better than mine.
With that optimism, no, my day's been all right. Just obviously was coming away. Got to hang out with producer Jacob a little bit. We did our NFL Indy stuff. We worked together more than I worked with anybody else here at this company. So I see him pretty much every night recording NBA stuff. Nice to get NFL there. Hoping for a redemption weekend in that regard. But yes, looking forward to running back Monday's success here with you for round 2. However, I will say the other time you and I did a deeper dive, I think we've only ever done 2 together. You binked right out of the get-go too. So it's one of those things where like, we're 2 for 2. Maybe it is your turn.
I think it was actually like the first show you and I did together.
It was.
Which is too far in the past now for $30,000 wins.
Yeah, three years ago for you, about a dozen or so $30,000 wins. For me, about a half dozen. So, yeah, dude, phenomenal stuff that has worked out for you and I. Man, it's one of those things where I guess, yeah, you just have a certain rapport to be able to be able to work on your stuff, be able to be businesslike, and not sing like I do on shows with Greg, so I can get through the day.
I think maybe you and I are like the best things that happen to each other. When our powers unite, like the sum of our parts is more type situation?
That might be it. We're able to drone out all of the noise from everything else and just kind of like focus on good basketball analysis, as opposed to like, I think this is going to happen, I think that is going to happen. Although that does feel like a lot of my analysis for this slate with some of the guys that I've already taken out of my stuff. So it's going to be a fun slate. I like this hour on Friday. I could get used to like an hour sprint slate, if you will, on Fridays. I'm going to go hit golf balls as soon as it's done at 5 and call it a day.
I called it a day the moment I got off the strategy show. I immediately mainlined 3 beers to try to deal with my feelings of Jurgen Klopp leaving Liverpool by the end of the year.
Oh, so, no.
Yeah, I knocked back 3 brewskis and then took a 2-hour nap to sleep off those brewskis because I've been dealing with my feelings. I've been crying multiple times today while watching videos on YouTube. It's been a day. I've been getting mocked incessantly by my friends, which has not been great. It's been a good time. It's been a good time.
I mean, Salah's not leaving, so you're fine. You're still going to be good.
Well, I think he might be more likely to take some Saudi Arabian money now if Klopp's not around, is my guess.
He's from Egypt, right? So I doubt he is. Yeah, we'll see. We'll see. I don't know.
Offered 150 million last year.
Jesus. Like that per year, right? Per year.
No. Well, so that was to buy him from us.
Oh, got it. Transfer.
I would assume they would offer him. I mean, probably $700,000-800,000 a week.
I could probably live on that.
That's usually that would be my just thinking about like knowing what some other people got on their way over. He would get. Look, I mean, he is. I'll be charitable. I don't want to say he's one of the 10 best players on the planet.
He is.
He's going to get a staggering sum, no matter where he goes.
Allison, I'm just looking at the roster here quick. Yeah, you guys are going to be fine, though. You're going to be fine. I'm a Man U guy. We're in shambles. We're in absolute shambles.
Yes, you are.
Yeah.
Yes, you are. That makes me happy to the core, obviously.
Thanks. Appreciate it.
But look, that's all I can hang my hat on right now.
Yeah. So we suck.
Yeah, that's exactly true. Yes. You guys being awful is the only thing. I watched the full highlights of the 7-0 win earlier today. That's the kind of thing that I need right now to bring myself back to neutral.
Yeah. You were in the Champions League final last year, right?
2 years ago.
2 years ago. Okay.
I got COVID.
Oh, good times. Fun.
Yeah,
fun
I got COVID at the bar and we lost. And it wrecked me too. It was real COVID, not some of the fake COVID that's out there.
Gonna say it's you, me, Ben. We're probably the only people who pay attention to anything football/soccer related when it comes down to it. Like, I'm sorry, obviously I didn't see that news. I've kind of been in an NBA bubble today, but that is obviously a gigantic deal.
Ben only pays attention, like Ben has like a cursory knowledge of the Premier League. He's more of a fifth league in Kenya type dude.
Oh, yeah, that's true. Are they playing on actual soil, or is it going to be in a sand-filled box? Because
Yeah,
I could see them not scoring any goals in that event.
yeah. He's like, oh, they played on an ice rink today. It's like, what? It's like, yeah, when you bet on the 10th league in Northeast Russia, they don't have ground.
I love Ben so much. This is why Ben is definitely, I think he's like most people at this company's favorite person to work with.
He's the absolute best.
Yeah,
Love it.
The absolute
love it and love him.
best. Fact.
You ready to do this one? We've got an interesting slate ahead of us.
I am.
And we get out of the gates pretty quick. Dallas Mavericks, 1-point favorites in Atlanta, 244 total. And we got a little bit of news earlier today that this one was going to look a little bit different. Some of these guys project a little different when Kyrie Irving isn't around. And Kyrie Irving is not around. He is out already, as is Maxi Kleber, as is Dwight Powell. And we have some pretty healthy ownership coming into the Dallas Mavericks, including 58% ownership coming into Luka Doncic. Yes, that is a number that is being stated right now. Highest owned dude on the slate, 58% to Luka. 55 to Grant Williams, which we need to have a chat about. 30 and change to Josh Green and Tim Hardaway. In the 15 to 20 range on Derek Jones Jr. and Derek Lively. Let's start at the top, Luka Doncic. How do you feel about 58% ownership to Luka, and how do you feel about that in relationship to 11 to Giannis Antetokounmpo?
Well, I have 42% more than 58%. So I would say that if the slate started right now, I would just be eating the chalk, playing 100%. And obviously, you just saw Giannis 2 days ago during the Millie, during that slate that Greg ended up winning 20K. You had the main piece you needed was Giannis Antetokounmpo at 7%. I believe it was like 4% in the Millie.
Yeah,
he's obviously a crazy high upside option, but we're talking about a difference in projection of nearly double digits between him and freaking Luka Doncic. We're talking a massive disparity. It's over 13 in our projections right now, the difference between Luka and Giannis in terms of raw projections. Also, because he's point guard, and I'm looking at some of these small forward, power forward, I said a name that was really, really egregious before this show, of somebody that on the Clippers I might be playing a lot of, pending how that news drops. Luka Doncic, I think I'm going to have access to, and it's just going to be in every single lineup that I put out today.
I don't think that is crazy at all. I will say I don't know what I'm going to have at this point, because I look at that gap in ownership of 47% right now and just think to myself, like, should I just not play Luka Doncic and play Giannis Antetokounmpo instead, and just cross my fingers and hope that 58% of the field is pseudo dead if Giannis beats him?
What do you think about the assist rate the last 4 games here and getting Doc in there? Because Giannis is one of the major things that's really put him over the edge here is 10, 10, 9, 10 assists. It's kind of come out of just not nowhere. I mean, he averages 6.2 per game, but like there's definitely some kind of a philosophy change there that they've had where Giannis is just distributing and doing different things there, and Dame is kind of floating to the corner. And if you think that that's going to continue under Doc, and you think that this is going to be the way things are from now on, Giannis is definitely a viable pivot, because you're talking about somebody who's put up back-to-back 80 spots and is playing within that framework of that offense and looks pretty good. But I'm a little bit worried that they try to cushion, like give some love to Damian Lillard right from the get-go. Obviously, I think more of the discord of why you're switching out coaches is Damian Lillard's fit with this team. Like that's my impression with it. And as such, don't you try to get him involved in some capacity? I feel like there's at least enough worries that I have that Damian Lillard might be handling the ball a little bit more, might be distributing a little bit more here going forward, that I'm just at least cautious. I'm cautious about how much Giannis I would be getting to, but obviously you're saying all the right things where it's like, well, there's a massive 50% ownership disparity between him and Giannis. Is that probably correct? No, you're probably getting negative leverage at Luka at a certain point. But I mean, you run this slate out however many times. If Giannis beats him straight up, now 25-30% of the time, probably worth it to make that shot. But that's still 65% of the time that you're looking at Luka just being the clear-cut guy at a point guard spot where there aren't a ton of punts.
Not that I think this matters for what we're trying to do right now, and we'll get to it, I guess, in a little bit for Milwaukee. I don't think Doc's coaching tonight.
No, I don't think he is either, but I'm just saying that, like, I think that this is going to be something that, I think this is something where they're going to be, like, trying to make, because, like, you gave up Drew Holiday. You've kind of made your bed here at this point in time. Like, Damian Lillard is going to be your number 2 here on this team, and Giannis and him have to have that rapport, and it has to happen come playoff time. It's still freaking end of January. Like, we have plenty of time until things really need to be fully operational. You still have Chris Middleton, who I'm sure you're going to love like you do on most slates at 6,300. But I think that just looking at Milwaukee, I'm a little bit worried that some of that gets funneled away. That's just such a crazy, I'm not saying that this isn't something that's sustainable because it's Giannis, but like that triple-double bonus on top of the assist rate, on top of everything we've seen the last 4 or 5 games, I'm just not sure that that's the way that Milwaukee is going to be playing going forward. They still have a 122 implied total, but I mean, for me, I'm just kind of making the case for like, I'm probably going to get to some shares of Giannis alongside Luka. I think that there's going to be lineups with Grant Williams if you're playing him. And then if Amir Coffey ends up being that 36-minute guy that you can click in for the Clippers, as terrible of a fantasy producer as he is, it's going to give me access to both of them. I'm just trying to play a little bit of devil's advocate to what I'm doing as opposed to maybe what is optimal to do.
What do we do with the rest of Dallas here? Because you mentioned Grant Williams now 3,400 power forward center eligible. Just seems like with everybody that's out, knowing that Powell is out, knowing that Maxey is also out, it doesn't take a ton of, like, not that Grant Williams is a great per minute dude, but it doesn't take a ton of minutes for him to just be a good pay down option. I'm getting to 68%, and I don't have him projected as good as we do. I'm 3 full fantasy points below us and still get to him. So I don't really see Grant Williams as a guy that I can get away from.
Yeah, and we'll double check. I mean, I assume that he's going to continue to start here. That was his first start in a long time against Phoenix. If he's not starting, I think it's much easier to say, hey, I'll hit eject on that kind of ownership for him. I still think he's somebody that's viable to get to. He's played, mid-20s minutes in some of those spots. So it's not like he would be somebody that fall out of all of my lineups, but would I have him in 61% of them? Absolutely not. Just something to pay attention to. I mean, I ended up jamming him at sub 5% the other night. He ends up getting ejected in 11 minutes. Really enjoyable experience there. But I am pretty positive that Grant Williams at this kind of a number, if you're just looking for a punt right now, barring a lot of news that we still have to come. I mean, New Orleans, we could be playing a lot of those guys in the mid-range, 4K, 5K. We have a lot of guys obviously coming up for the Clippers that could potentially look incredible. But as it stands right now, Grant Williams is the easiest guy to punt with. If you're playing him in cash, you just kind of click on it. As long as he's starting, you're fine.
What do you like here for the rest of the team, though? You've got pretty big ownership coming into Josh Green, Tim Hardaway, Lively, and Jones. Do you like those guys? Not like these guys? Do you have a bigger stand on anyone in particular? Where are you going for the rest of Dallas? Because obviously the matchup here is fantastic. 27th ranked defense in Atlanta, number 4 in pace. This is a really nice spot. And you kind of almost want Trae Young to play to keep it like more competitive.
Yeah, 101.7 possessions per 48 minutes. You get Trae Young back here, and you also get defensive liability Trae Young out there again. So that's an enjoyable thing for Luka and company. You end up taking out like DeJounte Murray playing at the point there potentially. Then, Bogdan Bogdanovic isn't your world's best defender, but Garrison Matthews isn't coming off the bench to flamethrow or anything. So for the most part, Trae Young back is a good thing for this game environment. It's basically a pick 'em. I like Tim Hardaway Jr. I mean, we've seen him now in this starting unit be somebody that can be relied on. He didn't start the last 2, but I mean, he could potentially be somebody that could get filled in. It could end up being Grant Williams going back to the bench. That's just something to be paying attention to there. Josh Green's 4,200 small forward, power forward. I think that's just fine. I mean, 38 minutes at a competitive spot against Boston, 31 in that blowout against Phoenix. So I think the minutes are pretty secure. Even though he's just a terrible fantasy producer, he's not as bad as some guys we'll talk about a little bit later that might be playing gobs of minutes too. I'm curious about Derek Lively at 5K, what you're planning on doing with him. This is the first game of the slate. You get Clint Capella, who's going to be in on the other side of this, so you should have him. You're going to get true centers. I got to think Derek Lively, you put him in for 28 minutes. He looks really good for me. It's just a question of like, what else shows up later on the slate? Obviously what time the news comes out later on the slate. What's your Lively interest level?
I'm dead neutral on him right now. We've got him projected for 18% ownership. I have 22, and that feels pretty good to me. Like I wouldn't mind if I had a little bit more. I wouldn't care if I had a little bit less. He seems like a guy you got to get to. When you don't have Maxey and you don't have Dwight Powell, you just feel a little bit better about the ceiling in his minutes. And it's not like you're thinking, oh no, Clint Capella and Onyeka Okongwu are going to be like foul problems for Lively in any way. Like Trae Young might be, but I think you got to take that shot because they don't have enough behind it. I don't think they're clamoring to get more Rashawn Holmes on the floor or anything like that.
No, definitely not. You're basically secure him in the pick and roll with Luka doing whatever they were doing earlier in the season. No Kyrie out there. Like Derek Lively just feels like somebody that you can land on in 10-15% of lineups would be just fine for it. It's just sometimes you get on these shows and you're like, oh, I need to have a stand. And I don't really have one, I guess, with him right now. It's more of like, he's falling into 12% of lineups for me right now in my top 150. And I think I would be just fine rolling that out come the beginning of the slate.
Is there anybody else viable for Dallas that you think is sneaky? Like Exum's already 5,500 and we don't really know how many minutes he can play. That seems difficult. Any Jaden Hardy, any Seth Curry? Is there anything else for you?
Yeah, last slate, 3,600 Jaden Hardy was somebody that I had pretty high on my radar. He's up to 4,300 now. I don't think you need to take that kind of like guessing game approach. I mean, he played only 15 minutes against Phoenix. He can play 22, 23 if he gets it going at some point. But for the most part, it's a game environment that, yeah, it'd be nice to see Jaden Hardy out there, but I don't think you need to try to force him. We have him in for 21 minutes. I think that's about appropriate. Maybe a little bit on the high end there. At 4,300, I'm not going to land on him. Derek Jones Jr., if you got to him as well, he's playing enough minutes to be viable, but pulling a little bit more ownership for a 0.78 fantasy point per minute guy than what I would currently want on this slate.
Okay, let's take it over to the Atlanta side then. We did get the news relatively recently. Trae Young in, Clint Capella in. So we are getting a full strength Atlanta Hawks team, minus Hunter, but he's been out for a while. 17% ownership to Saddiq Bey is the only guy in double digits other than Clint Capella. Clint Capella down to 8% now.
Yeah,
actually. So only guy in double digits. Let me just make sure we didn't get an ownership update in the last couple seconds. 13 minutes ago. Let me grab that. That will help. It's always good to have the best information,
Useful. You always remind me. I should have reminded you. You always do a good job of being like, maybe hit the refresh button, Eric, like one time. And I was thinking that when we were talking about the last spot, but
I did it before 503. 16% ownership coming into Saddiq Bey, 11% to Clint Capella. He is in double digits. He wasn't prior to that update. Single digits across the board for everybody else. Is Saddiq Bey the guy you have your eye on? Because I'm kind of interested in a couple other pieces here from Atlanta.
Yeah, I don't have a ton of interest in Saddiq Bey. I think he's fine if he falls into lineups for you. 30 minutes, 32 minutes. Life's fine getting to Saddiq Bey there, knowing that he's a 0.8 fantasy point per minute guy. Phil's small forward, power forward. He's fine. I think there's going to be guys that I'm probably going to punt with a little bit later in the program that we'll talk about or potentially be punting, looking at you, New Orleans and LA. But as it stands right now, Trae Young's the guy I have the most interest in out of anybody here from Atlanta. He's 9,400. I don't know if we just get crazy amount of minutes right off the bat. It was a concussion. So, like, obviously, people working out after a concussion, doing any cardio after a concussion can be something that, maybe they try to limit his minutes. But if I put him in for just like a standard 35, 36 minutes against the Mavericks here on the other end, you have an opportunity to really see something here from Trae Young. Dallas overall this season, 24th in adjusted defensive rate, 10th in pace. So they're up in pace from where they've been in years prior. I feel really confident that 3% Trae Young being overweight to that is something I'm interested in.
I'm sure we won't have to worry too much about Trae Young's cardio. He can just take off on defense like he normally does. He'll be more than fun. I agree with you, though. I have 12% of Trae Young, and I would be afraid to get a little bit more. I am getting to Saddiq Bey at 5,100. I think that price is just a little bit too low for him. But the guy that I like the most, I think, is Onyeka Okongwu. And I think a lot of it has to do with the fact that he just hasn't been very good lately. 0.83 DraftKings points per minute over the last 30 days. And you're seeing that in his price tag now. He's 4,600. But they still keep playing these guys like 1 or 2 minutes alongside of each other. He's playing like 25 minutes a night. In his most recent games, 25, 29, 23 in a game where neither one of Capella or he got the full run. It was a blowout. 26, 27. 4 out of his last 5 have all been 25 or higher. And the only one that wasn't was a game where no one really played those minutes. So I'm intrigued by him from a playing time standpoint, especially if he can pick up an extra minute or two alongside Clint Capella. And I think that he just, at some point in time, stops playing like a 0.83 guy and goes back to the 0.95 guy that we've known for a while. So I think he's kind of sneaky for GPPs. Not anybody that you should be like hitching your wagon to, but the kind of guy that I like for today. Jalen Johnson's fine. Clint Capella's fine. But I think Trae Young in a GPP here against Dallas is at least mildly interesting.
Yeah,
we have no idea how bad the concussion was.
Yeah. I don't know how to factor it in. All I see is 3%, and then I put him in for 35, and I'm going to get more than that, it would appear. I think that's kind of the best way to describe it. As you said, 12%, you probably don't want to get a ton because there is that uncertainty. There's a range of outcomes where he plays 32 or he's perfectly healthy and plays 38. A projection is basically just taking a middle on that. So Kongwu here, friends, I get it. 13.5% usage with Trae Young off the floor. You have a 13.8% with him on. So obviously maybe a tiny bit of an uptick just to have somebody out creating. 0.3, it's not going to do a whole hell of a lot for me. But I mean, for me, it comes down to like the center split. I mean, as long as we continue to see 24-24 for them each, I mean, Clint Capella has been the better fantasy point per minute guy by a little bit of a margin. So I still probably end up landing on a little bit more of Capella, but I totally understand Okongwu. He's been playing absolutely horrendous, and the usage, I mean, that's the thing for me. The last 4 games, 12, 7.3, 12, 13.3. There's going to be the games where he gets to 23.6% and he has 12 shot attempts like he had against Orlando because he's knocking down shots. If he's not knocking down shots early, he doesn't get that same kind of leash. So I get that play at 4,600. I just think we might have a lot more appealing stuff coming up later.
Alrighty. Scheduled for the rest of the day. You guys know the drill. NBA Live Before Lock coming up next. And you know the only way to see NBA Live Before Lock is to hit the like button on this video. If you don't, the screen goes black and you don't get a show. So just stay here on this stream. If you want to watch the next show, all you got to do is hit the thumbs up. It helps us out tremendously. I also want you guys to use our avatar. It can get you into our Stochastic Hall of Fame. Go to stochastic.com/avatar, grab that logo, load it up on DraftKings, FanDuel, Owner's Box, or Yahoo. You do that and finish in the top 3 of a contest of 5,000 or more entries. You get 1 month of whichever package you're looking for at Stochastic. It's a $200 value. You can get the NBA package for projections and ownership and Sims tool and contest generator, lineup generator, premium Discord. I'm probably missing some things. All you have to do is tweet your result at Stochastic HOF. Show us your lineup. Show us the contest you were in. We want to promote you, and we want to give you a little something for doing it. I might also add, having our avatar could be a bit of a benefit to you. I'm not telling you what it is yet. I'm going to tell you in a little bit. But having our avatar certainly has a little bit of a bonus for you, not just for making the Stochastic Hall of Fame. So we'll put a pin in that for a little bit later. For now, we go to Houston, 5-point favorites in Charlotte. 223 total. Houston not looking as good as I thought they would earlier today, but now we have a Q tag on Jabari Smith. We still have a Q tag on Jayshawn Tate. Only Alperen Sengun is in double digits of ownership at 29%. We're showing him as negative leverage. I also feel like playing Alperen Sengun feels really good against Charlotte, so I don't mind it. I am a little under the field, which is kind of a bummer. And then single digit ownership to everybody else on the Houston side. Let's start with Sengun. Is he a guy for you today?
He is a guy that I have in 20% of my lineup. So I'm underweight, same as you right now, but he has a 28% usage. He's a guy who has a 60% true shooting percentage, or just south of it, 59.5%. He's got a 26% assist rate. He is doing everything you could ask for. 21.2% defensive rebounder percentage. I mean, he is a very good option on this slate. My thing is that I think there's going to be mid-range guys and other guys. We got Trae Young will be limited with minutes, though, so that'll change a little bit there for me. But going back to Houston, I am definitely going to be getting to some Alperen Şengün, maybe not as much as what I would like. We just saw Jeff Green play a boatload of minutes. We had an overtime game there, so it obviously boosted up a little bit there. But 38 minutes, if he continues to get the start, if you get Jabari Smith out, you still have Tari Eason out. Jayshawn Tate is somebody that is questionable as well still. So there are ways that this looks different than the last time out. But Jabari Smith, if he ends up sitting and Jayshawn Tate ends up sitting, 3,700 Jeff Green, whatever. Probably not going to go completely nuts with that in some capacity. He ended up getting pretty popular last time out at a cheaper tag, but it is Charlotte, so that's useful.
It'll help that even if that happens, you've got Grant Williams out there right now that's going to sort of usurp him, because I don't think that we'll be projecting Jeff Green for as many minutes as we get to on Grant Williams. So that'll help to mitigate the Jeff Green problem at least a little bit. I don't have anything of anybody other than Şengün right now. I had some Jalen Green earlier today. That has all gone away.
I got one disgusting one, and I don't know if I'm actually going to follow through on it. This is kind of like from the Ryan Putnaik school of like finding that ultra contrarian piece that maybe ran bad last time. Amin Thompson, he had really weird rotations last time out, and I don't know what's going on. Cam Whitmore, somebody who's obviously carved out some type of a role here, so you're not seeing as clear of a path for him as in previous times, but I guess it's just Dylan Brooks being back playing 32 minutes, playing 34 minutes in spots. I think that's kind of the disaster there, but I mean, I'm just at least staring at the matchup against Charlotte. 4,400 tags starting to come down a little bit. I mean, this feels a little bit too cute on this slate, but he's a fantasy point per minute guy, and there's no reason that it has to be Jeff Green that plays 34 minutes in some of these spots if it ends up being those other two out. So maybe I just hit eject on it no matter what, but obviously you would need both of those pieces of news to drop his way for me to even contemplate it.
We move on to the Charlotte side of this one, and there's not a lot of major priorities here. It's basically 10% ownership to Brandon Miller, 10% to Cody Martin, 10% to Miles Bridges. We have Martin, Miller, and Bridges all over 10% optimal rate as well. We're showing some positive leverage for Charlotte. I'm 2xing Miller and close to 2xing Miles Bridges. I wanted to get a little bit more LaMelo Ball. That just doesn't seem to be happening. The guard range right there is absolutely loaded. But I don't mind the Miller piece, and I don't mind the Bridges piece. I just don't love the matchup. Are you getting to any Charlotte?
Yeah, it's the matchup worrisome. It's a little bit worrisome there. Brandon Miller coming off of evisceration of Detroit there in a loss, of course, because that's how it works. But 39 minutes kind of hit the absolute high point for what you could ask there. I can't imagine that we're going to just see 38 minutes for him, 39 minutes every single time. Maybe we do. 36 is where we have him projected. And look across the board, LaMelo Ball did not shoot the ball well, did not look good against Detroit. I'm a little bit worried that he absorbs a little bit more of that opportunity that Brandon Miller's just kind of taken advantage of recently. I mean, 13 and 17. I mean, he's just been really efficient the last couple, specifically that Minnesota game, I guess, not as efficient the last few, but Brandon Miller, the shooting guard, small forward eligibility is obviously useful. It's not great to see Houston on the other side because we know Ime Udoka, he's just got Houston playing good defense, 113.7 adjusted defensive rating. That's 10th in the NBA. You get Dylan Brooks, who's been out for quite a bit, now coming back into the mix. You can make fun of him for his shot for looking like he's shooting with a backpack like Draymond Green, but for the most part, he's still one of the better defenders in the entire NBA. So not to bring up individual defense or anything, because this is DFS and it's also positionless basketball in 2024. But Brandon Miller, I'm at the field on, probably not going to be making as large of a stand as you are there. Miles Bridges, I'm interested in, though. 7,700. Trying to play his way out of Charlotte, potentially. I don't know if that's a thing that can actually happen at the deadline. I think everything's on the line, or everything's on the board for Charlotte at the deadline, but 7,700, there's still a little bit on that tag for me, absent Terry Rozier, that I think I can still land on some of that there. More of a known quantity for me, 24.8% usage, a little bit higher than that of Brandon Miller. You're obviously paying more, but I'm looking for a lot of those raw points, have him in for 38 minutes. I think that's just going to be something that falls into around 10, 15% of my lineups, no matter what.
All righty. Anything else for Charlotte?
LaMelo Ball. He's 9,800 without Terry Rozier. Nobody wants to play him. It's a terrible spot against Houston, Fred VanVleet, but I mean, it's still LaMelo Ball without Terry Rozier long-term. And I got to at least take some shots considering 2%. It's the same way that I felt about Trae Young a second ago before seeing that he's going to be on a minutes limit. I probably just take some of that and move it directly to LaMelo.
We head to Phoenix. 5-point favorites in Indy, 243 total. Highest owned dude for Phoenix, 6% owned Durant or 6% owned Bradley Beal. And it's not much better on the FanDuel side either. Highest optimal rate for anybody on Phoenix, 8% to Kevin Durant. I have 2 shares of Durant, even in a matchup against Indy. Bad defense, fast paced. I still can't get to these Suns dudes.
It's hard. 28% usage. So in the minutes that Beal, Booker, and Durant have shared this season, you've seen a 30.5% usage here now for Kevin Durant, 30.4 for Booker, and Bradley Beal sitting at 23.4. That seems a little bit high. I don't know what I did or made a mistake in my sheet on, but I thought they were sitting a little bit lower than that. As you said, it's just they're kind of siphoning off each other's abilities here. We have Eric Gordon that, as we're talking about, is listed available to play. So that's another guy who can come off the bench and eat up a little bit of usage. I mean, it's just so hard on any given night. Obviously, Devin Booker had revenge in his heart against Luka Doncic there, but I really don't care. It's so hard to just say this stands out on this team in this spot. You're getting an obvious pace up spot. They have 124 implied total, but 9,200, 6,900, 9,300 for those 3 guys respectively. I think the ownership is about where it should be. I would like Kevin Durant the most out of everybody, but as of right now, I'm with you where I'm just not landing on it.
Is your camera questionable to return for tonight?
Oh, no. See, all the time with this stupid thing. Here we go. To the HD we go.
You need to give yourself a profile picture on Zoom.
So Jordan Klein has that. It's me as the 40-year-old virgin guy getting waxed. He has that every time that my camera goes out on these because I need to get some kind of a new computer or something, a new monitor, so I can run my camera independent of all my stuff. Because as soon as I run a sim, it is toast. Absolute toast.
Well, we know what you were doing, I guess. We'll move it over to the Indy side. Also, single-digit ownership to everybody on the team. The only guy to get to double-digit optimal rate is the dude that I've been standing for like 2 weeks. That's Andrew Nembhard. He is 10% optimal. He's also the guy that I have the most of, but just 12%. I see Indy sort of like Phoenix, but just like slightly better. I have a little bit of Miles Turner. I have a little bit of Pascal Siakam. I have a little bit of Nembhard. But again, I don't see any priorities coming from the Pacers. They're all sort of priced where they should be.
Yeah, I was just rerunning a sim to limit Trae Young and to do a couple of other things as we're getting news coming in. And Indy was a team that, again, I think Pascal Siakam is going to be the guy that I get the most of with the power forward center eligibility. That's who I was getting before, and that is who I'm getting the most now. So that's good to know, sitting around 10%. But it's kind of a smattering of guys. I have a little bit of TJ McConnell. You're looking at the fantasy point per minute rate. That's obviously why it's come down over the last few. He's now down to 1.26. The minutes are so hard to know, but Nembhard, you looked serviceable and you still got 24 minutes last time from TJ McConnell here. So I think that I'm still going to end up with a little bit there. Nembhard, I just wasn't there for the last time out. Good for him. 29 minutes, looked serviceable for the first time in a while. And the tag came down $5,200. So that's pretty interesting across the board. But Benedict Mathurin, shooting guard, small forward, he wants to go out and chuck. He needs to go out and chuck. That's really the only purpose of him being out there. 23% usage on the season, and obviously without Tyrese Halliburton out there, if you don't have one of those games where Nembhard, is out there knocking down shots and attempting 15 of them, you could see him off the bench be that guy that can create and get his own shot. But for the most part, there is not a single thing here that I look at that I'm like, I cannot live without that. But Pascal Siakam at 10%, my highest owned.
Tolga in chat wins chat for the day. When your camera went off, Tolga's response was, Lindquist needs to like the show, which I think is fantastic. Great callback to everything. So I appreciate that. That's a good one. I'm a big fan. I
don't understand.
Wait, you actually don't understand?
I don't understand.
I've been telling everybody, because it's true, that if you don't like the show, the screen goes black.
I heard that for the first time today. So I know that That must be a recurring bit, though.
What do you mean by bit? No, that is how YouTube works, Eric. I don't think you understand how this works.
I just hit the
0 for 2. 0 for 2.
Sounds like me in DFS.
Except for on Mondays. Sleeper is the
Fact.
sponsor of this show. And if you would like to get up to $500 on your first deposit, all you have to do is click the link in the description of this video to sign up. I recommend, much like on the sports betting side, getting to every single pick'em site you can get to if you're on the pick'em side. I'm on the pick'em side until March, and then I become the sports betting side. But I want to be able to cast my net and get the most optimal plays that I can find everywhere. OddsShopper certainly helps you out with that. But if you sign up at Sleeper, you can put in 500 and get another 500. It's a great way to start your bankroll. If you find out you don't like it, then leave after you clear your bonus. If you find out you love it, then you already have more money on that site for yourself. You could 100x your payouts. They have dynamic payouts. So it's not just even action on both sides. You can get some juiced up lines that can get you all the way to 100x payout. And they have all the standard sports that you're used to. They run constant free squares, which to me, they're not going to get you rich. They're going to be the things that bring down your costs of playing at that site. Every site's going to have some rake that you want to try to combat as much as possible. That's what those free squares do. They help you to combat the rake the rest of the time when you're playing. That's when you print the money. OddsShopper will help you do that. Link is in the description of this video. If you want to sign up at Sleeper, please click that link, sign up through us, get up to $500 on that first deposit. The LA Clippers, 7.5-point favorites in Toronto, 236 total. Not a lot of ownership coming in here. Around 10 to Harden, around 10 to Kawhi, 10 to Mason Plumlee, just 1 to Paul George. Now, what's interesting about the LA Clippers right now is that Paul George is questionable for today. There will be a little bit of a trickle-down effect to James Harden, Kawhi Leonard, Norm Powell. Your coffee will look certainly more interesting at 3,200. I'm just going to open it up to you. How do you want to handle the Clippers?
So I ran all of my stuff with Paul George out because I thought it would be more interesting to talk about. And you look at the last game that they played, it was December 20th. There are two major things. One, you had an 8-man rotation, and two, you basically run into Amir Coffey playing unlimited, ungodly minutes out of nowhere. He played 39 minutes in that spot, competitive spot against Dallas. That is, James Harden was already there, so you don't have to worry about trying to factor that in. If you get Paul George out in this spot against Toronto, they're already carrying a 121 implied team total, and James Harden, 8,200, I'm going to get to an ungodly amount of. Kawhi Leonard, ungodly amount of at 8,600. We're talking about two of the best plays on the slate if that news doesn't come down. Now, if it comes out that Paul George is in, then, well, we'll reassess, but I'm still going to be landing on both of those guys. I ran one sim where, I have everybody in just the way that it's straight off of the site here, and I was getting to around 15% of Kawhi Leonard in that spot too, around 12% James Harden. So I feel pretty good about this being a team that you kind of want to get overweight to a couple of the pieces, but the very obvious question I have for you is Russell Westbrook, because this is a Toronto team that they can close with Thad Young, and if they're going to have Thad Young out there for 23 minutes and have him close over Jonte Porter, and Jonte Porter basically relegated to 19 minutes a game, Chris Boucher playing 14-ish a game, I think there's a really good chance for Russell Westbrook to close in this kind of a spot. They've been doing that a lot of late. It was a complete blowout against the Lakers last time out, but Mason Plumlee doesn't have to close in these spots. They do like to go small, and it feels like Toronto's the optimal spot to do that. And if I do that and change some of his rates, 6,100 Russell Westbrook would be with Paul George out, one of my highest owned players. What do you think about him?
I hate having to think about him, that's for sure.
Yep.
1.28 fantasy points per minute over the last month. The minutes are just going to be a total question mark. You get him like it was on the 14th where he plays 29 or on the 21st where he plays 31. You're going to be very happy that you have Russell Westbrook. Unfortunately, bookending all of those games are 18, 22, and 16. It feels a lot like Spencer Dinwiddie yesterday, who I didn't even go and check to see how he did, but I assume, since I don't remember it, he was probably shitty. Was that even yesterday? Was that 2 days ago? Whatever.
I think it was
he was playing 24 minutes a game in half of his games and 34 minutes in the other half. So the entire industry, myself included, was just all right, I don't know, 28, 29, call it a day. Hope you get him. That's what I would feel for Westbrook, because clearly he doesn't have to close in these scenarios. Clearly his odds of closing are significantly higher if Paul George isn't around. it's worth a flyer at that point because I think you have to bump up his minutes a little bit. I think the first guy you're looking at is probably Amir Coffey. He just sort of soaks it up. I think I would just be too interested in Harden and Kawhi at that point, but we would have to know, like, if you don't get Russ starting, and I don't think you would get Russ starting, I think it's going to be really hard to give him enough.
Okay.
He's also very live to like look back at 9:30 and he has a Russ day and you're like, shit, that's the dude I should have got to. Like, he's got the most feel of guy that will make you regret it.
Yeah. So I guess, so here's kind of where I'm at. I've been kind of debating what those minutes need to look like. I put Russell Westbrook in for 23 minutes because he played 23 minutes. And again, this is with Paul George out, just to amend for everybody. This is different from what we have on the site right now. But Paul George out, I put Russell Westbrook at 23 minutes. And when I did, I got to him in 24% of lineups. But the closing rotation is so important. So he didn't close. What happened?
Jabari Smith ruled out. Yes.
Jayshawn
Tate available.
All right. So does Jayshawn Tate start, or is it going to be like, that's going to be an interesting one, but probably doesn't do a whole hell of a lot for me. Jeff Green, anything to not have Jeff Green show up in my lineups, I'm okay with.
Agreed.
But I'm pretty positive. All right. So we go back to this game. And by the way, the Lakers game got really, really out of hand at the very tail end. They didn't need to bring him back in. And yes, Anthony Davis on the floor is definitely a thing. But you go to the Dallas game specifically, Russell Westbrook played 23 minutes without closing in that spot. And that's kind of where I just landed on it as the default number, put Amir Coffey in for 36 minutes, had James Harden at 38, had Kawhi Leonard at 39. Those are kind of like the baselines that I'm working off of specifically. I don't think Daniel Tice is going to play enough for me to get to him. I think you're looking at Mason Plumlee playing about the same amount, no matter what, unless he doesn't close. And that's where Russell Westbrook, again, you look at some of these recent closing lineups, and he's been in two of them in spots that are very, very similar to this. And it just has me feeling as though maybe I should put him in for 25 minutes and just get tons of him in this spot. Again, 31 against Brooklyn, 29 against Minnesota. And Minnesota with Cat and Gobert on the floor, both of them were in on that spot. A strange closing line. If they were coming from behind trying to knock down threes or just spread it out a little bit more and just went super small and said, screw it. But I'm not sure if that's a game script dependent thing. I'm not sure how to make Russell Westbrook's minutes work for me. All I know is that I'm trying to have that played out so that when we get to lock, so if I see like 45% own Russell Westbrook or something, how do I react to that? And I think how I react to that is just kind of, where do I set those minutes at? If I put him at 25, 26 with a closing, like a little bit of a closing rotation, I'm going to get ungodly amount of him be over that number. And if I don't, I'm probably going to be under. It's just such a weird piece to talk about right now, but I think it's a really important one for this slate.
I don't think you'll get all that much. So like let's assume he's a 1.25 guy and you give him 26 minutes. That's 32 and a half fantasy points at 6,100, which is about 5.3x his salary. He's sitting at 6,100. He would be right around Brandon Miller right now, who's projected for 9% ownership. So I don't think like if we get that and Paul George is out and we give him that bump, I don't think he's going to pull all that much ownership, somewhere in that 10 to 15 range. So I don't think you would get to any situation where you're just outwardly jamming him in. You also have Chris Middleton at 6,300, who's going to be in that same sort of projection range as Brandon Miller. Middleton pulling 13% ownership, so a little bit more than Brandon Miller. I don't think you're going to get a giant jump unless you knew that he was playing like 28 or 29 minutes.
Okay. I wanted to talk through it with you because I felt like you'd have a good pulse on it. I put him in for 23 minutes. I have him just over 30 fantasy points. And yeah, that's like 5x, but it's just a guy that I have a feeling that if the ownership isn't there and if that news comes out after lock that Paul George is out, I would be worried about how much of him I would actually get to, because I do think that there's some volatility to what his closing lineup spot is for me. What's really disgusting is just how much Amir Coffey I would have if I go from the 13 minutes we have projected at the site now and just give him all of Kawhi's basic, or not all of Kawhi, all of Paul George's minutes basically, and just say, hey, here's 24 more of these for you. And he's 3,200. I think I would just get to him a lot.
To Toronto we go. 18% ownership to Dennis Schroeder, 18% ownership to Thad Young. We'll call it 18 for Scotty Barnes and 18 for RJ Barrett as well. They're all in the exact same area. I'm getting to a bunch of RJ Barrett. I'm getting to a neutral amount of Scotty Barnes. I'm getting to a boatload of Dennis Schroeder. and I'm not getting to a single share of Thad Young. Very random team for me tonight. I'm either getting a lot or none at all. What are you doing with Toronto?
I gotta see the starting lineup. I'm assuming that it's Barnes, Trent, Barrett, Brown, Porter. I think we get Brown starting here. What do you think?
I think we get Schroeder.
If we get Schroeder, then I'm going to play an ungodly amount of Schroeder. I'm with you. 5,200, I would play an absolute metric ton. We have him starting at the site, but I'm a little bit worried that Bruce Brown plays and goes out and starts here, and they just play Scotty Barnes. In which case, 8,500 Scotty Barnes currently is the guy that I'm getting the most of on this team. I have currently around 34% of him. Dennis Schroeder would become that guy if he ends up starting and it's not Bruce Brown, but obviously that would be all good stuff for Scotty Barnes. The Thad Young one is very, very interesting. He was in that winning lineup I had the other day, and I think I only had 2 shares of him. And it's like one of those spots where everything kind of funneled towards a build where I needed to have a $3,600 Thad Young. If you need to have a $3,900 center Thad Young in your lineups, I totally get it. 26-minute upside, like that's not nothing for a dude who's around a fantasy point per minute guy, but I'm at least worried on this kind of a slate that if he ends up pulling 20% ownership, a fifth of the field really wants to be getting there, that they could be getting 18 minutes out of him. There's no reason it can't be more Jonte Porter, that they can't go small, especially if the Clippers kind of force that on them. I mean, that's something that could really be script dependent as well, where what the Clippers have on the other side, if Paul George plays, probably more inclined that they could close with just a regular Mason Plumlee, regular, not Daniel Tice, but Thad Young would be out there for like a normal 22, 23 type minutes there. But there's some volatility here and probably not something that I want to embrace all that much. There's some 5K centers, whether it's, somebody we talked about earlier with Derek Lively, Clint Capella. There's some guys that I just feel more comfortable with as opposed to a nearly 4K Thad Young. But obviously the savings, if it does something for you, sweet.
I hope it's Schroeder because I have a ton of him. I also like Gary Trent as a little bit of a sneak at just 8%. If the shot's falling, the shot's falling. But I will not be getting the Thad Young. That much I can tell.
Yeah. I mean, Schroeder's probably still in play off the bench. I have him for 29 minutes no matter what, so I wouldn't have a problem with it. You would obviously love to see him start there. But I feel like they want to keep Dennis Schroeder off the bench now that that's kind of what he's started to do. I think Scotty Barnes just slides over, plays point, and Bruce Brown enters the starting rotation, but Schroeder's just fine to get to no matter what. But yeah, if he ends up starting, I'll put him in for around 31 and a half, 32 minutes, and I'll get a lot more of him.
Anything else you want to touch on here for Toronto?
Gary Trent's just a dude. RJ Barrett is shooting guard, small forward, and the usage should be decent enough there. But again, I'm pretty much underneath on everybody on Toronto outside of Scotty Barnes, who I am playing a lot more of than the field.
The Orlando Magic are 6-point favorites in Memphis, 212 total, and they might look like the worst team on the slate. Highest owned dude is 6% to Markelle Fultz. Highest optimal rate is 7% to Franz Wagner. The 212 total in this one is 10 points lower than the next closest game and 24 to the closest game after that. This is a terrible, terrible game environment. 2 very good defensive teams. Even with Memphis missing all of their dudes, they're still a good defense. There have been at least a good defensive team. I have 1 share of Markelle Fultz and nothing else. If you get to, a Banchero or a Franz as a lineup pivot to somebody more owned, I get it. But Orlando does not look good today.
Hate him. I don't have anybody. I have a couple of shares of Franz Wagner. I don't have anything else. I like Paolo Banchero. We still need, like, the tag has to keep coming. Like, he's 8,300 against Memphis. I guess it's probably at an okay spot here now. They've had some really wonky blowouts here of late that have probably helped push these tags down to more playable spots. But for me, it's trying to like beat the wave for Franz Wagner, like 28, 24 minutes. But both of those being blowouts, I think we probably could see 34, 35 pretty quickly. And I want to be ahead of the curve on that. So I'm kind of giving him a little bit of a manual boost just to get to him before those minutes show up. But yeah, it's just probably the least appealing spot I could possibly imagine on this slate.
Memphis kind of feels the same way. Santi Aldama is the giant Q tag hanging in the balance because he did start his last game. Yeah, he missed the last one, as did Luke Kennard. We've got 10 to 15% ownership coming into Triple J, John Conchar, Luke Kennard, and Santi Aldama. Assuming Aldama is in and starts, I like him quite a bit, way more than the 16% that we are getting right now. He is a big stand for me. And I am taking a pretty sizable stand on Jaren Jackson Jr., 7,700. He is a very different play when all of these ball handlers are off the floor. He's got like a 37% usage rate with no Bane, Morant, Derrick Rose, or Marcus Smart on. Now, I don't think that he's going to maintain that, but I think it's well into the 30s. I believe his points prop is somewhere in like the 25.5 range. I'm getting a pretty big stand on Jaren Jackson. I would take some Conchar, take some Luke Kennard. But for me, it's Jackson and Aldama, assuming Aldama starts if he's in.
Yep. If Aldama starts, I'm going to have way more of him than 16%. I currently have him in. I put him in for 29 minutes. I think our minutes are maybe a little bit low on him at 20. What do we have? We had 27 earlier, 27.25. Okay. So same thing. 70. It just feels as though you go through the rotations last time out. He got up to 23 minutes without any fourth quarter run. He got pulled out at the 5:28 mark of the third.
He got hurt.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. Knee soreness.
Yeah.
It was just they ended up pulling him there. And so I'm saying that like 23 minutes, though, up until the 5:28 mark there's legitimately 30-minute upside there, depending on when they would want to bring him back after that, or if he had played an extra minute or two there in that third. So I think there's a huge minutes upside. They very clearly said we would prefer not to have a ton of Xavier Tillman on the floor. 16 and 18 minutes, even with a dinged up Santi Aldama there in spots. I mean, they can go small. They can go, the David Roddy, Gigi Jackson. They have different configurations, and you play Jaren Jackson Jr. at the 5. There's sweet stuff. I like Jaren Jackson Jr. I wish I was getting to more of him right now. I probably will, considering his tag got down to 7,700. But as of right now, because of the stars and scrubs nature of it with some of the guys that I've taken out, I'm probably not getting him as much as I would want to. But yeah, Santi Aldama, pretty phenomenal opportunity, I think, to get to him. I think he's a little bit underprojected across the industry.
And if Aldama is out, I assume we're going to get somewhere in that 30-minute range for David Roddy. They just don't have enough dudes that are like his size. And if he gets 30 minutes, he's probably like a 15-ish% owned guy. And to add him to the list of guys that look like John Conchar and Luke Kennard.
Yep, exactly.
Anything else from Memphis?
What do we think about Scottie Pippen Jr.?
Depends who you're asking. If we're going based on us, then he's playing. I think it's still Jacob Gilyard. So that ambiguity alone makes me not want to do it.
I legitimately think there's a chance that Scottie Pippen Jr. starts today.
Ooh.
That's a take. I want it on your radar because this comes out half an hour after. Scottie Pippen Jr., he played 24 minutes there against the Miami Heat. Like, that's a pretty difficult spot in general. And Orlando has a really good defense here as well, but he's 3,300. Gilyard's 3,500. I think preloading one of the two in is something you should probably do. Now, Memphis has switched rotations, or starting rotations, more than any other team in the entire NBA this season. There's just a part of me that wants to preload one of the two in. And I think you could preload it with Gilyard if you think that he's the guy who continues to start. But like, I legitimately think there's ways where this becomes like you could see the Kennard just out there playing, and playing point guard. That's the configuration we had last time out. But if Aldama's out, I think there's a legitimate chance Scottie Pippen Jr. starts at 3,300, and that could end up being the guy to get to because he has a 26.6% usage across, all of the 4 appearances. Who was he with before, the Lakers or something?
Yeah, he was with the Lakers.
Okay. I think it's just a guy that wants to go out and chuck. And that's at least a little bit useful. Maybe they want that coming off the bench, but I don't think it's crazy to think that if Aldama's out, that's a way that things could drop.
If Aldama's out, I still don't think he's, just me personally, don't think he's starting. I think we're either getting Tillman and we move Jaren Jackson to the 4, or we get David Roddy in that spot. I think the other starters are going to be Conchar, Kennard, Vince Williams, Jackson for sure.
Yeah. I mean, Jaren Jackson Jr. played point basically when Luke Kennard was the quote unquote starting point guard. So it's definitely something that they can do. Jaren Jackson Jr. brought the ball down the floor in most of those spots if you were watching. And like, I don't know. Something just tells me that they're not going to have Tillman out there for more than 16, 18 minutes ever again. Like, I don't know. It feels like this Orlando spot, especially with Wendell Carter, who's not the biggest of centers out there. With Goga now just sent to the shadow realm for God knows what reason.
Ooh.
Go ahead.
I'm going to pause you right now. This is important. We have 2 more games yet, too, so we're running long, which doesn't matter. But this is important. Scottie Pippen Jr. signed his 2-way contract with Memphis on January 16th. 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, 21, 22, 23, 24, 25. I don't think Scottie Pippen is under contract to the Memphis Grizzlies right now.
Wow. How would we not get that? That's wild.
So, assuming I am correct, I will definitely not play Scottie Pippen tonight.
January 16th, 2-way contract, 16th, 327.
I haven't seen anything that says that he has signed a second 2-day or 10-day.
10-day. According to have signed Scottie Pippen to a 2-year 2-way contract. 2-year.
Is he on a 2-way or a 10-day?
He's on a 2-year 2-way.
He's on a 2-way, not a 10-day. Ignore me. Thought he was on a 10-day. Previous contract was the
I'm glad
10.
we talked it out. I'm glad that,
Well, I saw that date and I was like, oh, shit.
Yeah. No, it's an important thing to always kind of have in the back burner that you're paying attention to shit on. Like, I'm going to miss stuff over the course of 7 games and minutes here, minutes there. But like somebody completely being out of a rotation would be a little bit of a disaster. But yeah, it's a 2-year contract.
Good eye. Yeah. That would have been very interesting to catch if we could have. But yeah, 2-way contract. Still there.
And now they're invested in him, so he's starting. There you go.
Exactly. Here we go, guys. Big announcement. Let's get it up. I had to lead in with terrible dog shit information to be able to give you guys this. Everybody's been asking for it constantly since we started dropping these Sims tools. Whatever happened to All Access? How can I get everything? This is the way that you do it. Sims package bundle. You get it all. All access to every single Sim product we have. NBA, NFL, MMA, PGA, baseball. You get access to every single thing. The cost for this Sims bundle is $549.95. That is what you get to start. However, I can offer you guys a $150 recurring monthly discount. Anybody that signs up for the Sims bundle and uses the stochastic avatar, DraftKings, FanDuel, you will get $150 off of that price. It will be discounted down to $399.95. The Sims bundle is now available to you. Every sport that we have a Sim tool for is included in this deal. And all you have to do to get $150 off every single month is use our avatar at the site that you're playing on. It's that easy. That simple. If you've been trying to get into this, if you didn't want to grab multiple Sim packages at once, you no longer have to do that. We have an all-access bundle for you guys. It's great. It's perfect. It's what everybody needed. It's what everybody wanted from the jump. And now we have enough here in that Sims package to be able to offer that bundle to you guys. It's exciting.
It's amazing. I'm glad that everybody, again, because there's so many packages, you just want to get everything all in one. And, depending on the season, depending on the sport, things are going to change. And like, just to know that you're covered for everything all the time is definitely a good feeling.
So guys, if you want to sign up, I'm hoping there's a link in the description or popping up in chat, but stochastic.com/join. You can get there, find that Sims bundle. Reminder, $150 off each month if you're using our avatar. Cleveland Cavaliers, 6-point underdogs in Milwaukee, 238 total. We have 30% ownership coming into Isaac Okoro, 20 to Donovan Mitchell, and about 20 to Karis LeVert. We don't have anything really interesting for Cleveland. Still no Garland, still no Mobley. How are you approaching the ownership coming into Cleveland?
I mean, I'm just kind of looking at the last game against Milwaukee. It was, semi-close until the very end of that there, and just kind of copy pasting a lot of the same minutes that we have there. Donovan Mitchell played 39 minutes last time out against Milwaukee. I think he's the guy that very clearly shows up the most for me. Isaac Okoro thing's interesting. 3,700 gives you ultimate swappability throughout the slate. That's probably going to turn into other stuff at some point. Can't imagine we get to the flip and everybody's got 29% Isaac Okoro. Feels hefty. I know 3,700 and there's obviously a pretty decent minutes allotment there, 24 last time out against Milwaukee, but that won't be me getting to that kind of a number here with Karis LeVert back in the mix. Sam Merrill, we thank God don't have to think about anymore at 5,400. So I'm thankful for that. And then Jared Allen is kind of the last guy where 7,800, it's all of $100 up from last slate. I think I'm okay getting there, but don't really have any strong stance on him. It's basically Donovan Mitchell or bust for me for Cleveland.
I'm with you. I have 32% Donovan Mitchell right now. Very happy about it. This is a fast-paced game against a not very good Milwaukee defense. I'm getting a little bit of Levert, but I'm under on Isaac Okoro, and I don't mind it. Negative 16% leverage last I saw. Not ideal, and I do not need anything else from Cleveland. On the Milwaukee side, Giannis is probable. Chris Middleton, 13% owned. Giannis, 9% owned. I have 38% Giannis right now. So the wheels are in motion for the Giannis stand. I also have 32% Chris Middleton, who I am quite confident is underpriced at 6,300.
Yeah, I was getting almost double the field on him, 24%, and thought that if I'm getting 24%, Josh is probably getting more of his guy than what I am. So ever so slightly there. The Giannis stand is obviously interesting. We talked all the leverage points up going him versus Luka. Luka is projected way better across the industry, as he should be, but like at the same time, Giannis Antetokounmpo, if this assist rate continues, if he continues to be the guy that they just play through every single possession and he's creating all of the offense, and Dame is just kind of not cast aside, but definitely more in the complementary role rather than a ball handling role, Giannis is going to smash a lot, especially against Cleveland that doesn't have anybody from a wing depth standpoint. Obviously, Jared Allen, good luck, have fun, enjoy your time. Evan Mobley, he will be missed.
He will be missed. That's for sure.
Yeah. I'm
so pumped for Middleton.
Just being able to smash him. Yeah. Middleton's a good play. I think Middleton's a good play today. And obviously the tag keeps coming down too. I mean, that's the other part of it. 6,300 is a little bit different for me on this slate where, there's only 1 hour to be swapping around and moving stuff. Feel pretty good about getting 32, 33 minutes of Chris Middleton at 6,300 against this defense that in its current iteration isn't as good as normal.
I will once again advocate for us bumping Chris Middleton's minutes projection. The Oklahoma City Thunder are 1.5 point favorites in New Orleans, 239 total. Now, nothing is all that interesting on the OKC side. Shea is 10% owned. If you need to be convinced on why you play Shea Gilgeous-Alexander ever, that you shouldn't be playing DFS. He looks totally reasonable. And another pivot to getting to someone like Luka Doncic if you're just trying to get away from giant ownership. Definitely a smaller ceiling than Luka for sure, but you're also saving a little bit of salary. The opposite side of this one, New Orleans with the Q tag on Zion, that one has the opportunity to really change up the game a bit. Do you like anything from OKC specifically? I assume obviously you would be more than okay having Shea Gilgeous-Alexander lineups if they show up.
Yep, I would like SGA. And obviously you have 10.5-man rotation, 11-man rotation for Oklahoma City there with Misic, depending on what they do on any given day, Case and Wallace, so on and so forth. Like, you're not going to really land on anything. If you want to get to a little bit of Chet, hope that it's a competitive game. He plays his 32 minutes. Awesome. That's fine to get to. Jalen Williams, I know that's somebody that a lot of people play. I generally am just like, whatever with Jalen Williams on any given slate. I'll probably get to just, a couple of shares. But the most interesting thing is obviously on the New Orleans side of things. Yeah. Herbert Jones, Larry Nance, those are the guys that are currently pulling the most ownership. Herb Jones will keep that and will be one of the highest owned players in the event that Zion gets ruled out, as he should be. Trey Murphy becomes more interesting coming off the bench there. Goes from like 21.5 minutes to, mid-20s, high 20s minutes. Can be somebody that goes out there and chucks 0.93 fantasy point per minute guy. And then the obvious ones that I'm going to play no matter what. Nuke of the night, if you will, Brandon Ingram. 1.15 fantasy point per minute guy. Did you know, Josh, that the New Orleans Pelicans in 2024 have played 10 games? Only one of them has been decided by less than double digits. Every single game New Orleans has played has been an absolute blowout. Oh, there comes the nuke of the night here as I'm talking. But 7,600 Brandon Ingram, 7,200 CJ McCollum. Just absolutely jam in the event that you get no Zion Williamson out there. That just is too good to believe up against Oklahoma City. Good defense, but the pace is absolutely there.
Is there a graphic for nuke of the night?
There is a graphic for Nuke of the Night. It was going as I was talking through it.
Okay.
But it's a video. It was a video that goes, Paul George available to play. What the hell?
There you go. Is it you like superimposed onto Oppenheimer's face or anything like that? Because that could be a pretty good one. You just he presses the button, but it's you.
That would be pretty great.
I'm great at this.
Man, what's Jordan Klein doing? What are we doing to fill his hours? Like, come on,
he's probably just popping zins and doing dumb stuff like he normally does in a tank top.
Yeah, it's just a video of me getting my dick blown off. That's basically what that is every single time.
Ooh, I got a couple of videos like that, but not the way that you mean it. Anyway, that's the end of the deeper dive, folks. If you want to watch NBA Live Before Lock, you got to hit that thumbs up or the screen's going black. Sleeper is the sponsor. Sign up there. And if you want the Sims All Access package, it now exists, and you can get it for $150 off if you use our avatar. We'll talk to you later.
What is happening, everybody? It is Friday, and right before we get into the weekend, it's time to break down an NBA DFS slate, which looked like it was going to have a ton of injury news over the course of Live Before Lock today, but there's some players on the injury report, but we've got a lot of stuff out of the way already. Jabari Smith Jr., he's been ruled out. We've got Paul George. He's already been ruled in, so we're waiting on Santi Aldama's questionable. We've got Zion Williamson questionable, but everything else looks like it is a status quo. Not too much crazy going on. So as you guys come in, do us a favor, like the video, subscribe to the YouTube channel. I'm joined here by Matt Belman. So Matt, bringing you in here. What's going on, man? Looking forward to the weekend?
Yeah, always looking forward to the weekend here, although that means no daycare for the baby. So could be a struggle, but we'll get through it. Congrats on your big win the other night. I know I was following a little bit, wanted to see you get first, but who was it? Kaminga went nuts in the first lineup, I think. I think that's who they had.
No, it was Patty Mills.
Okay. I can't remember exactly because it was a couple nights ago now, but congrats on that.
Thank you. Yeah, no, it was Patty Mills, which caused lots of dissension in the Discord channel. Not to rehash an ongoing conversation, but yeah, it was a big to do in the Discord channel about Patty Mills and somebody playing the point guard from the last game on the slate in the point guard spot, not the utility spot. It was a whole big fallout that lasted for way longer than I thought it was going to, because people were arguing in the chat, woke up the next morning, they were still arguing it. And then by the time the afternoon rolled around, I opened up Discord and they were still arguing about it. So it was a good, 40 hours of Patty Mills debate that went on in the Discord channel.
You must have had Kuminga then, right?
No.
Really?
I did not.
I must be thinking about the wrong slate then.
It was the Kuminga slate, but he was just so low owned that he wasn't.
Okay.
It wasn't a situation where it was oh, you needed to have Kuminga because everybody had him. It was he was 1% owned, if that.
I remember looking the night of while it was happening, and a lineup around you must have had Kuminga, and that stuck out to me. So I guess I just probably assumed that is what happened. So yeah, congrats either way.
Thank you. And on to tonight's slate. Jacob, if you wouldn't mind answering me, and you could just throw this into Slack. Are any of these questions ones that are super chats that were answered on the last show? If yes, I won't answer them. But if no, I want to make sure we hit on everything. But we will start with... Hit them all? Okay, cool. So let's start with Dahmer707, who says, thoughts on Nick Richards? He said that he missed that segment. So the Nick Richards segment apparently went on during the last show, or he just missed them talking about the Charlotte Hornets. Is Nick Richards somebody you have interest in tonight, Matt?
Not for me. I'm playing 2 lineups tonight, so he's not someone I'm getting to. I like spending down at center or spending all the way up. Richards is just not someone that I find overly appealing. If I were multi-entering, he looks like someone to maybe get over the field. I'm only pulling 6.5% ownership, 7% chance of being optimal, but our tools don't really like him. Do you?
So it depends how many lineups you're playing. If somebody's just playing one lineup today, there's no chance Nick Richards would be that guy who's in one lineup for me. But if you're playing a bunch of lineups, then yeah, Nick Richards is somebody who's a viable option who has shown to have a little bit of a ceiling. A big issue that I do have with Nick Richards, outside the fact that he just isn't projected the best on this slate, though, is really to do with something that we bring up a lot around here. There are some players who are questionable in the injury report. Zion Williamson is questionable. We still have Santi Aldama questionable. I don't want to lock Nick Richards into an early spot here, and then other players get ruled out, and you're kind of stuck with Nick Richards when there could be better value. So yeah, if you're playing one lineup or even 10 lineups, Nick Richards is not somebody who'd be in any of those lineups for myself there, Dahmer. Next question. I understand where you're coming from, though. He has had a couple of big games in a row. R. Gravy is asking us 2-part question. First, should we play Grant Williams today? Yes, I do think you should play Grant Williams. His minutes are very deceptive from the last game, because if you go ahead and look at the box score, you'd be like, hey, Grant Williams started, but only played 11 minutes. Why is that the case? Well, it's because he got ejected and actually started the game fairly well. He's not the best fantasy producer in the world. We know that about Grant Williams, but somebody on the Dallas Mavericks is going to have to shoot the basketball that isn't Luka Doncic. Kyrie Irving is out. We did see Grant Williams move into that starting lineup last game. And while it's unknown how many minutes he ultimately would have played, the reality is that him getting ejected from the game likely did keep his price point depressed. If he played a full allotment of minutes, I don't think he'd be 3,400 today, Matt. I think we'd probably see him $1,000 or so more expensive. So as far as punt plays go, he's one of the better cheap options we have to look at today.
It might be the best. 3,400 is just crazy cheap. People don't often think of it this way, but the difference between 3,400 to even 4K is drastic. You're talking about, 15 to 20% of whoever's salary. Williams is at a price point that he shouldn't be at, even though he sucks. It doesn't matter for DFS purposes. He's a 4K plus player in a good spot against Atlanta. I feel confident in saying that even if other news comes out, he will still look like one of, if not the best punt play value on the slate.
Totally agree. Yeah, you want to be getting yourself exposure to Grant Williams today, R. Gravy. And then his other question is best DK utility for 4,700 or less. So he's got a lineup built here. He's got 4,700 left. Let's see. Who do we think he should get to for 4,700? And we are going to miss, some of the context here in terms of maybe we might recommend somebody already has in the lineup. So I'll give you an option A and an option B here. But 4,700 at utility. Derek Jones, so it's going to be a couple of Mavericks for me. Derrick Jones Jr., if you already have Derrick Jones Jr., go to Josh Green. Derrick Jones Jr. isn't super popular today, so I think there's a pretty good chance you don't have him in your lineup right now, but that's my answer. Derrick Jones Jr., he's another guy who pretty much everybody in the Mavericks starting lineup, or even just guys who are in the Mavericks rotation, they see increased usage with Kyrie Irving being out. So Derrick Jones Jr. there at 4,400. Do you feel the same or different there, Matt?
I don't mind that. I view all these guys as similar. My gut says Mason Plumlee. There's opportunity cost with him being center, but it's a utility spot. So I never mind rolling with a center there. I'll take Plumlee, knowing I have exposure to a ton of Dallas.
Yep. Plumlee is also somebody who I'm overweight to the field to, so I don't have any issue with him being the option there. There are a fair amount of good players around that range, and they're almost all from the Dallas Mavericks. Next question, Phil Senzig. We've got a bit developing here, Matt. Velvet rope play of the night. And I like what we're doing with this, which is who's a player who's picking up a good amount of ownership that maybe we don't see as being quite as good of an option as the field does. Who's someone to be underweight to?
I've been looking and thinking about this question all day. It's a no doubt about her right now. The velvet rope play of the day. He cannot come into the club. It's Isaac Okoro.
Nice.
There's no way he should ever be pulling 30% ownership on a 7-game slate. 4th highest owned guy right now, or 5th highest owned guy. No thanks. Get out of the club, Isaac.
There we go. I've got 15% of Isaac Okoro, so I'm about half of what the field has right now. I think he's somebody very reasonable to come underweight to the field too. As far as a cash game option goes, if you absolutely needed to save salary with somebody around that price range in a cash game, cool. But for tournament purpose, I'm going to be underweight to a very chalky Isaac Okoro. Not to the point where he's not in any of my lineups, but I've got half of what the field has right now. So good choice, because I agree with you, and that's what I was going to go with. Ace of Spade, DK Tiers, favorite options. Yeah, I'll pull up DK Tiers right here and go through the players who I'm getting the most of in each tier. So DK Tiers, starting with tier 1 is probably the easiest question we're going to have in this entire situation here, Matt. Tier 1, we've got Luka Doncic, Giannis Antetokounmpo, and SGA. If you could pay up for any one player today, it is Luka pretty clearly in my opinion, but maybe you feel differently, Matt.
No, I don't. 72 fantasy point projection.
Yeah.
10 more than Giannis. That's nuts.
We have, and not to say that projections are the end all be all of anything. There's always wiggle room with different stuff. But if you're just doing player A or player B, and player A is projected for 10 more fantasy points than player B, it's going to be the guys. It's just such a big gap in fantasy point projection. That's what happens when Kyrie Irving's out for the Dallas Mavericks. So pretty clearly, Luka for me in tier 1. Tier 2, another pretty clear one. That's going to be Donovan Mitchell for myself. Tier 3, another pretty clear one, Şengün. And that's another guy who's really benefiting because Jabari Smith Jr. is out for today. I probably already would have liked Şengün in that tier, but even more so now. Tier 4, Scotty Barnes. Tier 5, Triple J, Jaren Jackson Jr. And then tier 6, this is one that's actually really tight. There's a number of guys who project without a fantasy point of each other. I'm going to go with Chet Holmgren because of all these guys who are projecting similarly. Chet, RJ Barrett, Franz Wagner, Bradley Beal, Jalen Williams. I'm going to go with Chet as the player who I view as having the most upside there. So Ace of Spade, I hope that helps you build out your tiers lineups. And as always, thank you for leaving your question. I know a lot of people in the community really appreciate it too. They always get excited when we talk about tiers around here. Jake Lindland is asking core plays for a single bullet in the FanDuel 3-3-3. Have you looked at FanDuel much today, Matt, or just DraftKings? I've got lineups built out for both, so I can just give them a core if you prefer me to talk about FanDuel.
Not playing FanDuel, but I have looked at it. So
okay.
I'm down for whatever you want.
Yeah, so as far as core plays go, Luka as your pay up option. I know he's really expensive on FanDuel at 12.3, but it's not like he's that hard to get up to when you consider that the pricing is, on the whole, relatively soft on FanDuel. So Luka as a pay up option, really like him. Josh Green as a value option, really like him a good amount on FanDuel. Another pay up option I like a good amount, although not quite as much as Luka, is Donovan Mitchell. And then another player on the low end that I like getting to is Thad Young. Thad Young came off the bench, played 26 minutes last game. I do think there's a lot of volatility in his minutes. It's very hard to confidently say that he's going to play the 26 minutes he played last game. I also don't know that he plays the 13 minutes he played from a couple of games ago. But I like the upside of Thad Young at a low price. So both DraftKings and FanDuel, he's a good tournament play in my book. So Thad Young as another core option for you, Jake, in that FanDuel tournament. Over at 14 is saying, should he play nobody over 10K in a single entry on DK? I think you are making a fairly big mistake if you're not strongly considering playing Luka in your single entry contest.
Yeah. I think the only like viable argument to not play Luka is ownership. There's so many other ways to get different that's not the route I'm taking. So for me, that's not, I'm playing Luka. So
yep. So there's only 3 players on the slate that are priced over 10K. We've got Luka, we've got Giannis, we've got SGA. If I'm ranking those players, it's Luka 1, it's Giannis 2, it's SGA 3, and Luka is one of my highest priority plays on the entire slate. So as far as your question goes, I think you should be playing Luka in single entry. The only reason not to, like Matt had said, is going to be if you are trying to get your lineup a little bit different looking. In single entry today, Luka's probably going to be, I don't know, 70% owned. We've got him north of 50% in large field contests. And then you consider how single entry generally ends up being a little bit, sharper. So Luka is going to be super popular. Unless you have a lineup that you're trying to get off the ownership, play Luka. It's going to be optimal to get him into those lineups. Our Gravy says thoughts on Niang. He says that he kills the Bucks and he's 3,900 on DK. Does he really kill the Bucks? Like, does George Niang kill anybody other than occasionally the team he plays for? I know he has games where he knocks down some shots, but let's just pull this up here. George Niang is somebody who I am not really getting exposure to. Here's what's funny.
He had that one big game.
If you're going to play George Niang, the reason to play George Niang has nothing to do with the fact that he's had good games against the Bucks in the past. Here's the reason that you play George Niang as a pivot off of Isaac Okoro.
100% agreed. Even that, like he's projected to be, he's got a 3.5% chance of being optimal, 6% ownership. He's fine at 3,900, but saying he's killed the Bucks is a bit of an overstatement. I'll just go back his past 6 or so games. He had 23. He had 44, obviously really good. He had 6 the game before that, 0 the game before that, 21, 23, 1. So, I mean, he had the one game where you're like, you need Niang.
And let's see, was it even a game where, and I don't even know that you needed Niang on that slate because
he was so low owned.
He was probably like 0.1% on that slate. The only reason, like I said, if you want to play George Niang today, and I'm kind of splitting hairs here, right? Because he just wants to know, should he get to George Niang or not? If you're playing one lineup, my answer is going to be no. But if you're playing a large field tournament, you just want to pivot off of Isaac Okoro, who I think is over-owned on this slate, you could pivot off him with Niang instead. But don't roster guys just because they have had good games against them in the past. It's not like George Niang sees the Bucks and he's like, oh shit, green jerseys, I shoot 75% from 3 now. It's just some random shooting variance that's happened there. So our Gravy, thoughts on George Niang? He's a low priority option, but you can roster him if you want to pivot off of Isaac Okoro. 1207 B Miller is asking us best positional values for 4,500 or less on DK. Let's see. So guys who are 4,500 or less at different positions, there are a handful of cheap guys that I actually really do like on this slate, Matt. And it's pretty often people will be like, hey, what is the best punt play at each position? And my answer will be, well, I don't have a punt play at every single position. I think I can do it for every single position today, though. If I go to point guard, right? So starting with point guard on DK, John Contrar's point guard eligibility, very viable option for 4,500 or under, especially if Aldama's out.
Yeah, agreed. I like that call. I was going to say Schroeder, but then I realized I'm an idiot and he's 5,200, so he doesn't work.
Shooting guard, so Contrar's point guard and shooting guard eligibility, so him there. And then a couple of guys from the Mavericks with small forward and power forward eligibility. I'll go Derek Jones Jr., who I think is one of the more overlooked players on the Dallas Mavericks today, only projected for ownership just over 10%. So that's one who's a little bit of a contrarian option. Then if you're going to be more chalky looking, Josh Green is $4,200, and he's a very exceptional value play. So it's small forward and power forward. Go to Derek Jones Jr. and Josh Green as a couple of guys on the Mavericks. Anybody else you would add to that mix at the forward spots?
He's the velvet rope play of the night, so I'm not playing him. But Okoro, there's a reason he's getting ownership. So he's in play. I mean, it's unlikely that he gives you a score you need, but it's also unlikely he kills your lineup at 3,700.
And then if we start looking at power forward centers, some of the guy we talked about before, Grant Williams. Grant Williams is a really strong option. And then as slightly lower ownership, Thaddeus Young. Thaddeus Young had a big game last time out. And we have seen the Raptors, even though they start Jonte Porter, they hate him. It's very odd. They start him and then do whatever they can to get him off the court as quickly as possible. It's like, shit, Jonte Porter missed a shot. We got to take him out and never put him back in again. 2 fouls for Jonte Porter. It's Thad Young time. So it's even though they've been starting Jonte Porter, they try to get Thad on the court as quickly as they can in some of these games. So as a little bit lower owned of a punt option, I'll go with Thad Young there. Chalkier play. Grant Williams, one of the best power forward / center options on the slate. If we're looking at points per dollar, just overall options. So Grant Williams, Thad Young, there are a lot of good guys to get to for cheap price points, which is another reason why, getting back to the question that Olrat14 asked us before about not wanting to pay up for anybody in single entry contests. Well, then the question becomes, what are you doing with your leftover salary? If your answer is that you're not paying up for guys because you're not punting with these players, well, then I think you're just foregoing the best points per dollar plays on the slate. So you kind of do have to pay up for like a Giannis or Luka in most of your lineups.
I agree. Like, could a weird slate play out where like the mid-tier just absolutely smashes? Sure. But NBA is projectable. Right now, there's just too much value for like the optimal line right now on paper to not include some of that value and a guy like Luka. And I'll say this about center. I'm with you on Thad Young, playing a little him. We also talked about Plumlee. And Larry Nance is sneaky, potentially. Started the second half over J-Val last game. Don't know that's going to happen tonight, but if Zion's out, I only like him more. Not that it makes a huge difference for him, but already interested at 3,900.
Yeah, so I have a feeling a lot of people are going to want to play Larry Nance if we do see Zion ruled out. And I'm not going to say it's unreasonable. One thing I would just caution people about, though, is the Pelicans do not like to put Larry Nance and Jonas Valanciunas on the court at the same time. So you're making a mistake if Zion's out and then you just go, oh, cool, 30 minutes for Larry Nance. I don't know that that is going to be the case. Now, if they end up starting Nance and Valanciunas together, sure, I'll change my opinion. But what I think they're going to do if Zion is ruled out, Zion, who's still questionable to play, is it's going to still be a split at the center minutes between Valanciunas and Larry Nance. But something else that you had said there, Matt, which is definitely important, they started Nance over Valanciunas last game. Or not last game, last second half of last game. If that happens again today, we see the starting lineup and there's Nance in it, he is a very, very strong option. It's just hard to know that's what they're going to go back to.
He becomes one of the best plays on the slate. The only pushback I'll give on your first point is, I definitely think it's a mistake to play him because Zion's out. Zion's out, excuse me.
Yeah.
But depending on when we get that news, I'm just not sure how many people, I think people will want to play him. But if we get that news after the Toronto game, I'm not sure many people are like playing him now in hopes of Zion being out. Maybe I'm wrong there.
Yeah, I agree. So, we just see what is his ownership at the moment. Yeah, he's only projected for 7% ownership. So I feel pretty good in saying that people are not rostering him right now.
So I hope that the news just comes out late because people have a hard time swapping to him.
Yeah, we'll see. I don't know exactly what to expect from the Pelicans starting lineup. Obviously, Zion questionable. And then, it was very bizarre. I know my first thought, as soon as we saw that Larry Nance was starting the second half over Jonas Valanciunas when I got that alert on my phone, my initial reaction is, oh, when did Valanciunas get hurt? And then you see Valanciunas check in the middle of the third quarter and you just be like, oh, they're just starting Nance over Valanciunas. I haven't really been able to figure out why it was they did that. Is it something they're planning to do tonight? We'll see. We'll see later on in the night. Next question here, James Magruder, best play at each position and then biggest cheap fade. So cheap fade, I'm going to speak for Matt on this, Isaac Okoro, because we talked on it before. So I feel pretty comfortable that we could say that is the guy that we don't like as much as the field for cheap. As far as best plays at each position, let's go back and forth here, Matt. For me at point guard, it's pretty easily Luka. How about for you at point guard?
It's Luka. If you want me to say someone else, just because Luka's so obvious, it's Schroeder.
Shooting guard for me, that's going to be Donovan Mitchell. It is not that difficult with all the value on DraftKings to play lineups that have both Donovan Mitchell and Luka Doncic in them.
No, not even a little bit. There's just other good play. Like if you do, you can easily do that, but then you can't play the likes of like Brandon Ingram, etc. For my shooting guard, I'm going to go Tim Hardaway Jr.
Small forward for me, Derrick Jones Jr. He is of all the options we have that are in play for the Mavericks, my favorite lower owned one is Derek Jones Jr.
I like that call a lot. Good spot for him too. Fast-paced Atlanta team, prone to turn the ball over. I'm with that. My small forward is going to be Ingram. He's too cheap no matter what. All of a sudden you get Zion out. He looks like one of the best value plays on the slate. I know you don't usually think about 7,600 players like that, but he is.
I just realized that I could go Mavericks for every single position as I'm looking at my exposure.
Right.
I really could. So power forward, it's going to be, I mean, I could go Josh Green here. I could go Grant Williams. I already gave Derek Jones Jr. another position, but I'm going to go power forward, Josh Green, center, Grant Williams.
So I'm just taking the question kind of another angle. Like the best plays are the Mavericks guys because they're so cheap. I'm going kind of with my favorite plays. And power forward for me is going to be Kawhi. I love him in this spot. Going back to Toronto, in good form right now. Paul George on a minutes restriction. Who the hell knows what that means? Probably nothing, but I also know George is a guy that has a propensity to like re-injure stuff, start the game, maybe not finish it. Not expecting that, but I just really like Kawhi from a contrarian standpoint. Easy to roster him with Luka.
So we've had a bunch of questions come in. So I burying the lead here because there's massive news around here, Matt. Really, really big news. Something that people have been asking us for a very long time, and we've done it. So if you guys want to sign up and get a bundle of all the sports that we offer together for the Sims packages, we have it now. If you guys sign up using the link we have below, or you can go to the site, not only the link below, but use the link below, just helps us to know where it is you signed up from. If you want to get access to the Sims for all of the DFS sports we have, NFL, NBA, PGA, MLB, MMA. I think I might have said PGA twice, but everything we have as far as the Sims packages go, and NASCAR, that's also going to be coming soon. Sign up now and you get a bundle, all of them together. And on top of that, Matt, if somebody signs up and you want to use the stochastic avatar in contest, you get $150 off, and that is in perpetuity. So it's not just like a sign up offer where you get $150 off. It's every single month that you pay for our Sims package. When you get it all bundled together, you're going to get $150 off if you use the stochastic avatar. So there's going to be a form for you to fill out that just shows that, hey, I use the stochastic avatar. And then we're going to check in every once in a while to make sure that everybody who says they're using it actually are. But it's a good deal for you. $150 off. You get all of our Sims bundled together, one package. It's the Sims All Access package. So if you guys have been waiting for a bundle, we now have it. And we wanted to wait to make sure that we had, an ample amount of Sims sports to be able to bundle it all together. Now we've got just about everything covered. So sign up and get access to everything all together. Let's see what else we have as far as super chats here. And so we just got the question, our favorite play at each position. And now Too Nice has left us a super chat. And he says, all right, now top 2 plays at each position. One wasn't enough, Matt. So now we have our second favorite player at each position. So let's circle back on this. And all right, how do I want to answer this? So point guard, I'll group these two together, Luka and Donovan Mitchell. These are two guys who I had as point guard and shooting guard. They both have point guard eligibility. So I'll go Luka and Donovan Mitchell. You have to add another favorite point guard play to the mix. Who are you going to go with?
I almost like the 2 better because sometimes I can't decide. So for point guard, give me Luka and Schroeder.
Shooting guard, I'm going to Conchar and Hardaway.
Shooting guard, I'm going to go Ingram and Hardaway.
Okay, so now small forward, Derek Jones Jr. and Scotty Barnes.
Small forward, I'm going to go Kawhi, and I'm with you on Derek Jones Jr.
And then power forward, Grant Williams and Josh Green.
Right with you there.
And then center, I'll go Şengün and Thad Young.
I'm going to go all 3 of the cheap centers that we've talked about, Plumlee, Nance, and Thad Young.
And then we've got R. Gravy asking, is Pippen Jr. playable? And then he wants to know best small forward for 3,400 or less on DK. And actually, I'm going to bring in Lee for this to ask him, what does he make of the minutes in Memphis? Because last game, we saw a split at the point guard minutes. It was Jacob Gilyard playing minutes, and then we saw coming off the bench. And Gilyard actually played reasonably well, but then Scottie Pippen Jr. came in, and he was incredible off the bench and just kind of forced himself into more minutes, ended up closing. Lee, how do you see the point guard minutes breaking down for the Grizzlies tonight?
Yeah, I kind of get the sense that Memphis is giving up on Gilliard. I mean, he played okay, right? But like Scottie Pippen is clearly playing at a different level, and they actually need ball handling. It's disgusting watching Jaren Jackson Jr. dribble down the court, or like Kennard or Contra or whoever the F they want to put in there. It's terrible, right? They need a point guard, and I think Scottie Pippen could be that guy. So right now we have them in as kind of like backup minutes. But I think there's probably like a 1 in 3, 1 in 4 chance that Pippen could actually start for Memphis and look at like, mid-20s type minutes. And that would be, a real different look. And it would be probably the best value on the slate.
Yeah, I think that's a really good shout out that we could end up seeing him start because he closed last game. And Jacob Gilliard even played, by his standards, played fairly well last game. And they still ended up closing with Scottie Pippen because I was very high on Gilliard last slate. He opened up the game, hit like 2 threes in the first few minutes of the game. And I'm thinking, hey, we're going to have a pretty good looking Gilliard game here. But the big problem too is Jacob Gilliard's like 5'2". He's balding. He can't guard anybody. He just doesn't have he doesn't have the physical attributes to be an NBA player. Unfortunately, it's not his own doing. He's just a short guy, and he's not super quick. He's not very athletic. He doesn't have the tools to be able to guard opposing NBA players. And then on offense, he also doesn't have the speed or the quickness to be able to attack the basket. And he's a decent enough shooter, but he's somebody they only kind of use in emergency situations. Wouldn't be surprised if we do end up seeing Scottie Pippen Jr. in the starting lineup, to Lee's point. On paper, terrible game, 212.5 point total. What is this, 1997? Now, when's the last time we've seen a game with a 212.5 total?
It's been a minute. I feel like Pippen ran so good last time out. Like, I know he played 24 minutes, but I just feel like that was a byproduct of they had no one else to bring the ball up the court, like Lee was talking about. Now they have Kennard back tonight. Like, I'm skeptical of like giving him not starter minutes, but even expecting him to start, even though I could see it, just because this was the first game he really played for them. Like, he was out of the rotation. So yeah, maybe they saw something, they run with it, but they've got more established guys in this game that are healthy. So I don't know what to expect, to be honest.
You know that the Memphis Grizzlies are in a bad spot when the expectation is just like, hey, their best point guard option is Luke Kennard. Like, when is Luke Kennard traditionally playing point guard minutes? So Kennard is back. That is a difference. He was out last game. That was what forced him to start Jacob Gilliard. I would be fairly surprised if we don't see Scottie Pippen ahead of Gilliard in the rotation, just based on how they closed last game. So with that in mind, I think there's a potential that we see Scottie Pippen starting at point guard based on how he played last game. Not a bad tournament flyer. Not a bad tournament flyer at all. Let's see what else we have. Was there a second part of that question, by the way? Yes, there was. Best 3,400 or less small forward on DK. 3,400. That might be a little bit too cheap for me to find somebody I like.
3,400 at small forward?
Yeah. I guess if it has to be somebody, Jayshawn Tate, but he's generally a no for me. If it has to be somebody, it's him, but it's really nobody at that price point.
For me, if it has to be someone, give me Amir Coffey.
The options aren't great. So our gravy, if he can finagle your lineup around to find some other salary savings elsewhere, I think you probably should do that. But yeah, the option's not good there. I'm going with Jayshawn Tate. Chris Williams says, great show like always. Can answer this later. No, I'm going to answer it right the fuck now, Chris. He wants to know the top 3 captains in the Spurs showdown, and then he knows that Wemby will be one. So I know that I emphatically said that I'm going to answer this now, which I am going to do for you. The one thing that is a little bit tricky, though, is don't forget that we do have players currently questionable in that game. We've got Malcolm Brogdon is questionable to play, and Trey Jones. So those are a couple of players who can certainly end up changing how that game ends up looking. So let's assume that everybody's in for the purpose of your question, Chris. If everybody's in, we're just looking at everything as it is now. So the late showdown game, Portland Trailblazers, San Antonio Spurs, Wemby, easy choice to get to Wemby in that game as a captain. As for other guys, I am going to give you Anthony Simons as another one. Simons is somebody I think you should consider, particularly if we end up getting a situation where Malcolm Brogdon is out. As for a third one, I want to give you more of a contrarian option to look at. It's hard. It is hard though with Brogdon and Trey Jones both questionable. If Trey Jones is out and you want to be contrarian and save some money, Blake Wesley, and then just spend up at other spots. A little bit of bias on my part because Blake Wesley ended up helping me win a bunch of money a couple days ago. But it's all the same reasons that I would like him today in these contests if Trey Jones doesn't play. We saw Wesley start at point guard last game. I assume that would be the case again. So Blake Wesley if Trey Jones is out, Chris. And then also Chris gifted us 5 YouTube memberships. So appreciate that a whole bunch. Thank you very much for supporting the channel, Chris. Next super chat is from Olrat14. And this is a 1v1v1 question. He wants to know if he should play Williams, Miller, or Middleton. Chris Middleton of those 3 on DK.
Definitely. Dallas's lineup is out. No Hardaway in the starting lineup. I kind of want to get Leon and see if that does anything, like what their starting lineup actually does, if anything.
So this is the same starting lineup they played last game, if I remember correctly, because they also brought Hardaway off the bench the last game. And then the entire rotation got fucked up because Grant Williams starts fairly well and then gets himself ejected really quickly. So we did see Hardaway come off the bench last game, played 34 minutes off the bench, even though the game was a blowout. But Lee, what do you make of the Mavericks starting lineup in this game?
Yeah, and this was expected. It just basically means that you can't play Jaden Hardy. Or if you do, it's like a tournament flyer type situation, or you're hoping for a blowout or something like that. Something awkward like that. They're just going to stagger Grant Williams a bit, and he's going to play some backup 5. So it'll just work out about 30 minutes for those guys. A little bit higher for Josh Green, Tim Hardaway. Nothing really surprising here. Play Doncic.
Luka all day. Yeah, and then as far as the cheap guys go, Grant Williams is the cheap option, the punt play on DK I get the most exposure to on the slate. He's not a good fantasy producer, but he's going to play a bunch of minutes. There's usage available. So Grant Williams, I consider him a must-play in cash games, by the way. Grant Williams, like him a lot in tournaments as well. Next super chat is from my filler arc, who says Fred Van Vliet and Thad Young or Scotty Barnes and Scottie Pippen Jr. Option 1 for me, Fred Van Vliet and Thad Young. How about for yourself, Matt? Scotty Barnes. I will say that if Scottie Pippen Jr. does end up starting, then him. But assuming he comes off the bench, I'm not going to answer him for the purpose of this question. Fred Van Vliet and Thad Young. Do you feel differently, Matt?
It was Barnes and Pippen.
Yes.
Definitely the Van Vliet side. Not even close for me as of right now.
And then Zachary Pinnell is asking us for a DK single entry in utility, Şengün or Barnes. That's Şengün for me.
Şengün.
James Magruder, best 7,600 or under to play in utility. Let's see, 70. That is... Oh, actually, this is fairly easy for me. Brandon Ingram, who already looks decent as is, and then if Zion gets ruled out, he's only going to project better. So perfect price point. Go plug Brandon Ingram in. See what we have in the Discord channel now. One of the perks of being a Stochastic member. So if you guys do want to sign up for our Sims bundle, it also grants you access to our Discord channel. Or if you sign up for any other package, like the lineup generator package, less than $15, that also is going to get you access to Discord. And then it's going to give you lineups so you could play. And we've got our player projections, ownership projections in there as well. So any package you sign up for, get access to our Discord channel. And let's get to the questions that are in here now. And we have from... oh boy, lots of questions. All right, so let's start with this one here from Strixteen71. He says, we need the glasses, or I don't feel confident in your analysis. Even better, I've got contacts in, which help me see better. I see the entire slate in 20/20 vision with my contacts in. He wants to know, how do I feel about Vince Williams Jr.? So if you have a lineup with Vince Williams as a last man in, that's fine. I would not prioritize him, though, considering his price has gone up and that Luke Kennard is back in the mix as well. So not a priority at all.
Yeah, so do you see better with your contacts in as opposed to glasses?
Yes.
Okay. Interesting.
Okay. It's just the way it is.
Is that like a thing or like, because I don't wear contacts, but is that a thing?
Good. It is for me. I couldn't tell you beyond that. I don't know. And I've never had other eyes either. So it's hard for me to relate to other people's experiences. Maybe not. Cap and Akella wants to know our favorite single entry play. Derrick Jones Jr. for me.
Hawaii for me.
Okay. Next question is coming to us from Rico Rod 1980. Top FanDuel single entry plays by position. Yes, sir. So for FanDuel, point guard, Luka Doncic, shooting guard, Josh Green. Let's see. Actually, I'm gonna, so I could mix it up. Luka at point guard, Mitchell at shooting guard, Josh Green at small forward, Grant Williams at power forward. Center, it gets a little bit dicey on FanDuel because there's a lot of guys that I like at the position. I'm going to say Santi Aldama for now. If Aldama plays, and because he's currently questionable to play, if Aldama's in, he's going to go under-owned in FanDuel, especially in single entry tournaments. If he's out, Şengün, really good looking center option, but I'll go with Aldama for now. So hopefully that helps you out there, Rico Rod. And then Jets World is saying, if Zion is out, would we play Larry Nance or Thad Young on DK? It depends if Nance starts or not. If Nance starts, him. If not, Thad Young. Nance or Young? I know you were pretty high on Larry Nance before.
I view them so similarly. I think Thad Young is safer, but I think Nance has more upside and the potential to be a better play if the news breaks right. So take with that what you will.
Clyde is asking us, what are the best options to get away from Grant Williams? So if you weren't playing Grant Williams, who would you be willing to play for cheap instead? So if the goal here is to be contrarian, I'm going to say, I'll still go Thad Young. Thad Young, my favorite overall pivot. If you're looking for a deep tournament flyer, though, is like we've been talking about, Larry Nance, potential that he starts. He's another one you could get to. I think you should play Grant Williams, though.
I agree. I don't think there is like a pivot off of Grant Williams. So like I would just play Grant Williams.
Next question here is from Sniffs1234. He wants to know, how do I feel about Nance if Zion is out? The bigger question to me with Nance is, does he start over Jonas Valanciunas? If we do see Zion out, it's not very likely to me. That means that Nance goes and plays 30 minutes or anything, because the Pelicans have always been hesitant to give Larry Nance and Jonas Valanciunas minutes on the court together. So it's still them splitting the center minutes. It's just going to be more a case of, does Nance start over Valanciunas as he did in the second half of last game? The Black Mamba 8724 wants to know our thoughts on Thad Young. Good tournament option. I don't know that we could bank on him playing the same minutes he did last game, but we do know he has the potential to play the minutes he did last game. And he's played well when he's been on the court from a fantasy perspective this year. So Thad Young in tournaments, go for it. Somebody to roster. M. Grizzly, who are most over and underweight to in tournaments today? All right. Underweight for me, that is going to be Isaac Okoro. I've got half of what the field has. Overweight for me, overweight to Thad. Okay, so here's a couple of guys. Derrick Jones Jr. I like being overweight to Derrick Jones Jr. And I also like being overweight to Donovan Mitchell's another one. There's some chalky guys as well, but Donovan Mitchell, I think, is being a little bit overlooked by the field, as well as Derrick Jones Jr. Matt, your favorite players to be overweight to?
Kawhi, Brandon Ingram, Tim Hardaway Jr. Those three.
We got a super chat. R Gravy now says he's got a 4,400 left for his utility spot. He's already playing Josh Green, though, so who should he get to? That is going to be Derrick Jones Jr. for me at 4,400.
So it might be Plumlee for me. At utility, if let's say you don't have Green, how do you rank? Or who do you like more, Green or Plumlee?
So he has Josh Green already. I do prefer Green to Plumlee, though.
If it's just a 1-for-1?
Derrick Jones Jr. over Plumlee. For me, it's very close. It's very, very close, but I prefer Derrick Jones Jr.
They're all really close, but I'm with you.
Yeah. I mean, the projections we have are, I mean, it's within like a 10th or a 20, or it's within like a 10th or 2/10 of a fantasy point. We have them going against each other. M. Grizzly. Oh, no, already answered that one. Eric M. 3 favorite value plays on DK. So overall, 3 favorite value plays for me are Grant Williams. Grant Williams, Derrick Jones Jr., and Josh Green. All guys from the Mavericks, but what can I do? Kyrie Irving's out.
Yeah, makes sense.
Ma Dub T. I feel like we're getting the same question fairly constantly here. Wants to know our favorite value play for under 4,600. Okay. So this is best DK utility for 4,600 and under. Yeah, Derrick Jones Jr.
Yeah, I'm with that.
Let's see what we have. The next question is going to be favorite play, 4,400 or under, probably. Let's see. No, Miami High Life wants to know thoughts on Brandon Ingram. Brandon Ingram's a very good guy. If you guys are building lineups using our Sims tool, give an ROI boost to Brandon Ingram for two reasons. Number one, he's already somebody who's a serviceable option as is, but then you have the possibility that Zion is out. And if that's the case, you want to have just as much Brandon Ingram as you could possibly fit in. Play Ingram. If you're using our Sims tool, give him an ROI boost. So you're getting more exposure to him even before the Zion news comes out. Play Brandon Ingram today. Are you approaching Brandon Ingram in a similar way, Matt, trying to make sure you have space to get him in?
I love Ingram today. I was saying before.
Yeah.
I think he's too cheap, even if Zion's in. He looks like maybe the best value play on the slate if Zion's out. Ingram is a definite priority for me.
Yep. Brandon Ingram, definitely somebody to be getting to tonight. And then Einstein wants to know, any interest in Miles Bridges? Miles Bridges is he's not a fade for me, but not somebody who you want to like go out and play aggressively. I am a little bit underweight to him, project for just under 10% ownership. And one of the main reasons that I actually don't just want to jam Miles Bridges has a lot to do with something like Brandon Ingram that we just discussed. I'm pretty hesitant to load up on guys who are okay, but not great in the first game of the slate when we do have players like Zion who are questionable on the injury report for later. So last man in, Miles Bridges is fine, but yeah, don't go and prioritize him or anything.
I completely agree.
J Rob 624 wants to know Brandon Miller or Chris Middleton. Chris Middleton for me.
Yeah, Middleton.
And by the way, one of the best ways you guys could find value for yourselves on tonight's slate, sign up at Sleeper. We've got the link below to sign up at Sleeper. You're going to get a deposit bonus offer there. So you put in $100, they're going to match $100 for you. But also, there's a free square over there. There's always free squares that you get over at Sleeper. And it's only good for new customers. So it's something to take advantage of because, you know, there are very few sure things in the DFS and betting space, Matt. But you know what is a sure thing? When you can bet this current offer, listen to this. Damian Lillard. How many points do you think Damian Lillard is going to score tonight, Matt? 0 or more than 0?
Probably more than 0.
And the over-under for new customers at Sleeper, it's 0.5 points for Damian Lillard. So sign up at Sleeper, take advantage of that free square offer, over 0.5 points for Damian Lillard, and take advantage of that bonus deposit offer as well. Build yourself a bankroll over at Sleeper. Let's see what we have next here. Next question is from Tim Lee. Cash game staples. Yeah, so cash game staples for me, Luka, Grant Williams, Josh Green. Let's see if there's anybody else that I would call like an absolute cash game staple. Probably Şengün in there as well. And yeah, if you have space for another spend-up option, Donovan Mitchell. Luka, Grant Williams, Josh Green, Şengün, Donovan Mitchell. You actually could build lineups with Luka, Şengün, and Mitchell today. So that's my way to go. I say all three of them if you can fit them in, Tim. Cash game staples. Tensley 207 is asking us a 2v2. Tim Hardaway Jr. and Scotty Barnes or Dennis Schroeder and Kawhi Leonard. I'm going to say Tim Hardaway Jr. and Scotty Barnes. I don't have an issue with either combo, though.
I like the Schroeder side a bit more, but I like both.
And S. Reese is saying Nick Smith Jr. is starting today. Is he somebody who we should be rostering? So we've got Nick Smith is $3,800. And let's see, is he somebody who's making his way into my...
He's not starting.
Yeah, that's what I'm going to say. I didn't see him starting somewhere.
Yeah, he's not starting. Nick Richards is starting for them.
I thought I missed something. I was like, did I miss a piece of news? Because I was looking at my lineups. I'm like, I don't have lineups with Nick Smith. I see he's cheap. I didn't see that he was starting. So the answer is he's not starting, so it doesn't matter. Then we've got S. Reese asking, what percentage of my lineups have no Luka or Giannis? I believe the answer is none of them. And all right, no, about 10%. Almost all my lineups have Luka or Giannis in them, though. So play one of them. Play one of them. Next question.
1v1. 1v1, you're going Josh Green over Plumlee?
Yeah. I would go Josh Green over Plumlee. Oh, that's why. So Arkathelza left in the YouTube chat. This is good information now. Apparently somebody had reported at one point that Nick Smith was starting, and then the lineup had changed afterwards. So don't know where that ended up coming from, but that was what caused some of the confusion there. No worries, understood. Dominic Cubano, 25, is asking, what approach would I take to late swapping? Who from the late games would you increase your exposure to for pivoting? Brandon Ingram. Go ROI, upgrade, boost Brandon Ingram. That's the guy that I think you should be getting to. Nicola9292 wants to know, is Rashawn Holmes a tournament play on DK? Not something I'm getting to. A little bit too thin for me. I understand why with all the players that are out right now for Dallas, but that is a no for me on Rashawn Holmes. We have Rashawn Holmes projected for like 1 fantasy point today. Next question here is from Rico Rod, 1980. He wants to know my favorite players for FanDuel single entry at each position. I'm pretty sure I answered this question from you earlier, but I'll go over it again. So point guard, that is Luka. Shooting guard, Donovan Mitchell. Small forward, Josh Green. Power forward, Grant Williams. Center, Santi Aldama. If Aldama doesn't play, then Şengün. Next question is from R. Gravy, and he's asking us Şengün and Derek Jones Jr. or Ingram and Schroeder on DK. Şengün and Derek Jones Jr. for me. I prefer the Şengün and Derek Jones Jr. side. Next question in the Discord channel is from Fall0717 for a DK GPP. Conchar versus Derek Jones Jr. That's a very close one for me. I prefer Derek Jones Jr. though.
Same.
How are you doing on your lineups, by the way? Everything all good?
Everything's all good. Man, it's tough knowing or figuring out how much Dallas exposure to get while also wanting to save some spots because Dallas looks really good, you know?
Yeah. And for me, I'm playing a lot of Dallas, right? I have no issues getting to a lot of Dallas. And I am somebody who, as everybody knows, I really like to do what I can to try to make it so that my lineups are really set up well so that I have the flexibility to late swap. But for this particular slate, I think that it's one where we should be playing a lot of the it's chalk that we should be getting to, right? I felt differently a couple days ago with Nickeil Alexander-Walker. For today, though, just go ahead and play the Dallas guys. I think that is something you should be doing. Next question here is from Iron Maiden 2. Thoughts on Bruce Brown if he starts? Bruce Brown, not somebody I'm getting exposed to. Did you consider Bruce Brown today?
No, haven't really considered him at all.
He's definitely somebody you could take flyers on for tournaments. By the way, did we get the starting lineup for? Let's see. Yeah, so the Toronto starting lineup is not out yet. I do assume that they're going to stick with Scotty Barnes, Gary Trent, RJ Barrett, Jonte Porter. We could see Bruce Brown end up starting. Let's see. Price point on Bruce Brown. Bruce Brown is...
They're speculating because of Quickly being out.
Yeah.
Right.
Let's see. Bruce Brown's price point at 5,400. Yeah, if he starts, I say go ahead and get it. It wouldn't be a priority or anything, but he's in play. I do have exposure to Bruce Brown with Quickly out. And he's somebody who, honestly, regardless if he starts or not, he's a viable tournament play because there's still extra minutes to go there for Bruce Brown. And looking at the possibilities of the starting lineup for Toronto, I actually do think he's probably more likely to start than not. I think he's the most likely guy to slot into the starting unit.
You think Bruce Brown?
Yes.
Not Schroeder?
I think Bruce Brown starts.
Okay. I'm torn. I'm not sure exactly what to expect. I kind of think Schroeder, but I can also see them just wanting to keep him off the bench. And either way, both those guys are going to play more minutes now that Quickly's out. I don't think that's a question.
Yeah, and they're both in play with Quickly out. Right? They're two guys who we could be getting to no matter what. My preference is Bruce Brown over Dennis Schroeder, but if Dennis Schroeder starts or Bruce Brown, they're both good tournament options. Two guys to get to in tournaments. Let's see. Next question that we have in here, it is from OBG, and he's asking us, he says this is a process question. When you say that you were rerunning before lock, does that mean you're regenerating the lineups and then rerunning the sims? Yes. So it's pretty frequent over the course of the show that Lee might make minor projections updates, and then we'll get ownership updates that come in. So yeah, it's rerunning lineups as well as running them through the sims. Again, it's both things that I'm going to be doing. And then post-lock as well. Whenever players get ruled out, whenever there's a starting lineup that's different than otherwise would be expected, I'm always rerunning everything through the late swap tool as well. I do as many updates as I can. Marquee Sports, last man in, thoughts on Trey Mann. Not somebody who I think you need to play today. Philophonic 28. We playing Jeff Green. There's other value options I prefer, but Jeff Green's in play. They're playing him a shit ton of minutes right now with Jabari Smith out. He's cheap enough to be worth considering for sure. Four Prong Dinger is asking me favorite tournament option for 8,200 in utility spot. Let's see, 8,200 in utility. James Harden for me tonight. I like James Harden most at 8,200. And then we've got IC50. Talk to me about Damian Jones. Damian Jones, if you absolutely need to punt, he's okay. Tristan Thompson out. He's playing the backup center minutes because Tristan Thompson had all of the illegal substances in him. And I thought he was Barry Bonds in, 2000. He's no longer there. Damian Jones playing the backup center minutes. Not a high priority play, but if you absolutely need a punt, you could go to him. And then Jason, 123, asking me any love for LaMelo Ball. Not tonight. I played LaMelo a good amount the last slate. The problem today, though, is we've got Donovan Mitchell and Luka to get to his pay-up options, who I am preferring. And that is going to do it for us today, guys. Thank you very much for watching. If you've not done it, like the video, subscribe to the YouTube channel. If you want to sign for any package at Stochastic, Lee and I are both going to be in the Discord channel for the rest of the night. So Lee's going to be updating projections. And as I update my lineups, the stuff like a Zion update comes out, I'll be telling you guys how it's going to impact my lineups in Discord. So any packages you guys want to sign up for, links below in the description box. Thank you very much for watching. Have a great weekend, guys. We'll see you back here tomorrow.